listening to the RMPodcast, the official podcast of Red Moon Productions. Here are your hosts, Brandon Davidson, Keith Cheatham, and Sean Sebastian. Enjoy.
Welcome to yet again your favorite time of the week. Another episode of the Red Moon Podcast, live every single Tuesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern, right here on all your favorite social media accounts. Don't forget to check out the audio version available on Thursdays at midnight. I'm one of your hosts, Brandon Davidson, alongside our normal new host, Sean Sebastian. And he's smiling over there. I think he's got something funny to say.
Keith Cantor.
Keith Cantor?
I just wanted to get your hopes up. I wanted you to hear Keith and think, oh, he's going to do it. And then I didn't.
I mean, you've always been somebody new for the last...
I don't hope anymore.
I don't. Hope is something's
lost.
Forbidden in these lands.
Hope has forsaken. It's like
hope is forsaken in these lands. Do not trust a hope.
Yeah, do not trust a hope. It has forsaken these lands.
Yep. Which I always thought was funny because I was like,
I love that line.
It's a great line, but
Yeah.
there were times when I repeated it when I was younger. I was like, he surely isn't saying it that way.
Yeah.
Because it's just not the way you normally speak.
Yeah. No, it's
do
more
not trust
old
a hope.
Yeah, do not trust to hope.
A hope? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, no,
it's like,
to hope. It's do not trust to hope.
Oh,
Yeah.
do not trust to hope. Yeah. It is forsaken in these lands. Yeah.
I thought he said it has forsaken
It has.
these lands.
Yes, it has
Yep.
forsaken.
Like hope has forsaken
Yes,
these
that's
lands.
exactly what
yeah.
he's saying.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Which is
Yeah.
It's just Lord of the Rings, by the way.
Yeah, yeah.
fantastic.
That was one of the Rohirrim, right?
Aemir.
Yeah,
Aemir. It's
Carl Urban.
Yeah, I was about to say Keith Urban
Urban.
as well, but Carl Urban. Carl Urban. Yeah.
The other Keith.
Carl's great. I love. He's a fantastic actor.
And what is he? He's like, what is an elf, a man, and a dwarf doing
Yeah.
in the Riddermark?
Yes.
the way they
Yeah.
tie in all
Yeah.
the lore. And
I was like, I don't think I've ever seen him in anything that I didn't think he did a good. Like even when the movie's bad, like I'm like he does a good job.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Even Thor, like
Yeah,
his
like
character in
even-
Thor,
yeah.
Judge
he's
Dredd.
kind of
he was-
always the
I mean,
B-list
Yes.
star-studded, part of the star-studded
Yeah.
cast, but he's never the A-lister.
Yeah.
Well,
of the star-studded
He
cast.
is in The Boys, but that might be.
But in a movie,
Yeah.
he
In a movie,
really
you're right.
hasn't been.
Judge Dredd, I guess, but I mean, he's also he never takes the helmet off, But he
Yeah.
was fantastic as
And I
Dredd.
feel
I
like
didn't even know he played Dredd.
in
the
that's a-
newer version.
Yeah,
Okay.
he's fantastic.
But I feel like
Yeah.
the female character in that
Was
is
probably-
just as much of
Yeah.
a main character as him. He's still
probably
wasn't the
more
lead.
so because Dredd's meant to kind of be that background
Yeah.
force that
Wow.
is
Okay.
there. Yeah,
That was
But we
great.
just went into all this about Carl Urban.
Carl Urban.
Yeah,
Good job, Carl.
Well,
he also played Bones in the Star Trek.
There it
remakes.
Yep.
yeah, that was a perfect time to do it. He didn't do it.
All right, Dan.
Now I at least want to say this.
I was like, that's
I just
the right
wanted
one.
to respond to him that way. It's like, all right then.
I know if I ask him to do something the correct way, it's gonna.
Well, I
be
mean, I
done.
thought that was a good response to you because the moment had already passed
That's
to do.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
There it is. Yeah. Yep. Well, and I will say this is 2 weeks in a row now
It's working, yeah.
that it's working without me having to launch the app. Now, I did
Do it.
update the app. So
That's not the
little
one I thought you were
celebratory.
going to do.
Which
Oh,
one do you
Gonna
want?
do? It's working.
Oh,
It's working! It's working!
I just wanted to celebrate with the coin.
no, I thought that was good. Or
Yeah.
no, isn't there a one up? Did I leave the one up on there? Bloop, bloop, bloop.
Mario, no,
I don't
see
have it on there, do
It's on the
I?
next
No.
page.
The like level up, basically.
Nope, they're not. It's not on there anymore.
I took a bunch of them off. I think I have.
You should have left the level up one on
I
there.
think the game over's on there.
Yeah, the coin one is just kind of. I mean,
Yeah.
You always find a coin. Like,
Yeah,
It's just.
Now this one's still on there,
It's not special.
and that's good.
That's
That
the
one
game.
and the one up should have been left.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I can do that. I still have.
Game over, man.
Now.
It's game over.
That's the real.
I think
game
the
over.
Mario death sound we should play every time an actor dies.
Oh,
Like
really?
when we're talking about it. Yeah.
The actor in the movie, like he did pass a while back, as we had mentioned it, and I forgot until the credits rolled. And I was
think
like,
that
oh,
honestly, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
I think we should do an in memoriam segment.
Yeah.
Every time that somebody passes of note in the industry that passes that we all know, we put up a picture.
and just
We just
play
wait,
the.
and instead of like a bell toll, it's the.
It just fell off.
That's it.
They just fell
Yeah.
off the cliff.
Or even I'm honestly I'm okay with even doing because that's game related. I'm fine with doing the game over. It's like Bill Payne game over.
Over, man. It's game over.
So good.
So
Have you
good.
watched that yet?
Yeah.
Aliens?
Oh no!
Where he says that? That's what he says.
No,
it in.
no. I haven't.
You've seen Aliens though, right?
I've seen Alien.
Oh.
I've never seen Aliens.
Oh.
And I've never seen Alien 3. David
I mean,
Fincher
after
one.
Alien and Aliens is where you can
I've
leave it.
heard
Yeah.
Alien 3 director's
The director's
cut
cut's not
is
bad.
worse.
It's still not as good as
Yeah.
the first two, but
It
it's
has a different ending.
Yeah, but it's better. Like,
Is it
definitely
different David Fincher too? Like, I mean, around that time, is it something that he would be more akin to making now, or is it totally different?
No, it's good. Like,
actually good.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's not
Okay.
like he
Yeah.
off the deep end David Fincher. But
Well, David Fincher's not terrible. You're thinking
No.
David Lynch.
No, that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah,
of
David
Lynch.
Fincher's
yeah,
like
David
Social
Fincher
Network,
actually does good
Gone
stuff.
Girl.
Yeah.
Like he did.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Y'all are thinking David Lynch.
Lynch, yeah.
But David Fincher's
You're right.
done some good crap. Like,
Yes.
He normally makes good stuff.
Wow.
And
I didn't
I'm
even-
wondering if like that was
That
his
was back
first.
in the 90s.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was like
Yeah.
93,
92.
maybe?
That was one.
92?
I just his actual cut, like what he like, and if he had been allowed to do what he wanted to do originally without having to make his own cut, it probably would have actually
It's
been
just
on par with the first
crazy
two.
to me that you think of a franchise that, I mean, even if you count the third one as not great, but it's like, I mean, you literally had Ridley Scott.
Yeah.
James Cameron,
David
Fincher.
Fincher.
I mean, these are guys who were barely known back then and are like household names now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the fact that they touched the same series.
Yeah.
I don't know who did the Resurrection.
Some French guy.
That was terrible.
He directed it. Joss Whedon wrote the script. And,
That's right.
And,
Whedon did.
and they both hated each other because Whedon like wanted to make one type of movie and wrote it a certain way, and the French guy wanted to make a really artsy like auteur type movie. And like the script and his direction did not mesh because one was supposed to be like typical Joss Whedon, like more
humor
like
ridden and
like action, but with like the like tongue in cheek humor. And then the other guy was
that
like,
would have been
yeah.
a terrible
Yeah.
alien movie.
well, that's
though.
what I'm
not-
saying. That would have fit like AVP.
Yeah,
yeah.
That would have been
Yeah.
a good AVP movie, which we didn't.
So, but and then the other guys was like, neither tone was probably right for an alien movie. To be fair, like neither one of them were probably going to do a good job, but together they did have an
And I
abysmal
would have,
job.
while I would have defended Joss Whedon back in the day after Batman v Superman, even though I know it
He
was
didn't
not
do Batman v Superman.
or not Batman v. I'm sorry, Justice League.
Yeah,
When he came in to do the re-edits,
yeah.
on
When he
that,
did that, that was bad.
Look, I'm sorry, it was a turd
No, it was
sandwich.
bad, and that's fine. I mean, everybody's allowed a bad work, but then he got canceled for being a womanizer. So,
Well, and we're talking about
As do they
womanizers
all.
tonight,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
an actual raper who got conviction overturned.
yeah,
Is it it's a rapist.
A rapist,
Not a
yeah.
raper.
Well, yeah, I'm sorry, he'd
Not
be
to
a
be
rapper.
confused with a rapper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A rapist.
That's
Well, I don't know.
P. Diddy. He's a raper.
And yeah.
ra-
He's in
rap
he's in the
raper.
continual act of
Yeah.
doing it all the time.
Yeah.
I guess that's what the would be as opposed to the ist.
A continuing rapist. Yeah.
yeah.
But no, I mean, we're talking about, of course, the big news that dropped last week. Harvey Weinstein overturned. His conviction was overturned in the state of New York. However, he's still going to be going to prison because he was also convicted in L.A. So he's not getting out. But we'll talk about that a little later
I
on.
think it's funny, but we'll get there.
It's funny.
Yeah, it is.
Rape
It's
is
quite
funny?
Not rape is funny. No, the new.
This episode's name.
I can make
Our
make
legal
my
system
point.
is funny.
I was trying to save the point till the actual topic, but I can make it now if you'd like.
No,
I mean,
no, say it.
literally, rape is acquitted, or and murder is.
Well, it's the reason why they
Alec
overturned
Baldwin
it.
murdered somebody.
Yes,
and he's
the reason
going
why
free.
they overturned it is what I find funny. But again, I'd rather get into that at the topic.
Yeah, we'll talk about it
yeah.
in headlines. We also
Yeah.
got a great Vices topic. Our Vices topic tonight. Sorry, Kristen. Be mad at me. I had to get over here early to write up the
Brandon
lower
said
third.
he didn't like your idea.
In fact, you're gonna hear it right now. As far as
Oh.
I gotta drop the lower third.
I'm waiting.
Drop the mic.
Drop it.
I gotta drop. Oh wait, it hadn't loaded yet. Oh, there it is. There it is. There it is. That's what I'm looking for. There it goes. Ready? Oh, it didn't do it. Hold on. I gotta drop it in there. There it is.
I heard it. I heard it.
Yep. So I had to drop the lower third in there. Our Vices topic tonight is. Oh gosh, I wrote it down.
You just.
I'll
pull
put it
up
on the
there?
lower third. I don't want to pull it up because then it shows up on screen. I forgot. I
Oh.
completely forgot. Hold on. I can
Oh no.
do it. I can.
Game over, man. It's game over.
It is a vice you knew you had to cut back on. We've kind of talked about it a little bit before, like guilty pleasures and whatnot, and even things that we've maybe overindulged on, or even healthy vices. But I don't think we've ever talked about one that we were not necessarily.
We just said we need to do this a little
like,
less.
It's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's probably
Yeah.
something you shouldn't be doing a lot.
It's
of.
like I shouldn't be killing this many people.
Right.
Yeah. When you get into serial killing, you've taken it too far.
You know what's sad is that I'm glad you took it the murder route, and not the route we were talking about just.
No,
recently
I wanted
with
to keep
Weinstein.
it. I wanted to keep it at least PG-13 because you can do killing it at PG-13 or R. That's good in both those ranges.
I mean, isn't that crazy though? That's the world we live in.
Yeah.
Alrighty, we're gonna continue on with the show. We got a movie to review.
We do.
One that I think is gonna be a little divisive amongst us here in the group. But of course, we're gonna talk about it after you hear the review, and that is of a movie that landed at 5th place this
week. Its first week was number 2 at the box office.
Came out surprisingly up in the top of the box office. Didn't ever topple Civil War the week it came out, but Abigail slipped all the way to number 5. And is it gonna push back up there, or is it gonna continue to fall? We got Fall Guy coming out.
Yeah, it's not gonna go nowhere.
Unsung Hero was a Christian-made film that just
came in number 2
this
week.
This past week, and it came in number 2. It may have some stay and some legs at staying up there, just with the Christian circles.
Fall Guys this weekend. The weekend after is Planet of the Apes. Abigail's done. It's dead in the water now.
I think so.
Yeah.
But they did technically garner enough to make back their budget.
Yeah, they broke even, and I mean, with it, home video sales could boost it up. Who knows?
True.
I mean, it got good word of mouth, so we'll see what happens.
But what did we think of it? Well, here's our official review of Abigail.
While the new release well hasn't run completely dry yet, the choices are still slim pickings. Challengers dethroned Civil War for top spot in the box office this week, though we are electing to pass on the latest Zendaya film aimed at pulling in the Euphoria crowd. Unsung Heroes surprised the industry with 2nd place and is admittedly one we didn't see coming. Everything else has more or less shifted down. Godzilla and Kong have somehow stayed in the top 3, and Civil War has dropped down to 4th. Rounding out the top 5 was last week's 2nd place earner, Abigail. And while this seems like a death knell for the comedic horror film, Abigail has already made back its budget and gotten good word of mouth. Though profitability is in question, it may do better on home release. Why, you may ask? How did the unassuming film from the directors of Ready or Not and Scream 5 and 6 make a small wave in the social zeitgeist? This week we take a look at a hidden gem, or more accurately, a hidden diamond in the rough. Starring Melissa Barrera, who previously worked with directors Matt Bettinelli-Open and Tyler Gillette on Scream 5 and 6, Barrera plays a character referred to as Joey throughout the majority of the film. I say referred to as her, alongside the rest of the cast, play a group of professional criminals whom for the most of the movie's runtime are only ever referred to in code names. The crew are hired by a man named Lambert, played by Giancarlo Esposito, to kidnap Abigail, played by Alicia Ware, the young daughter of a powerful and rich man, in order to hold her for ransom. The crew, however, are not provided the details of who Abigail's father is, only that if they can abduct her and keep her safe at the estate predetermined for them to bring her to, for 24 hours, they would each get a $7 million share. Unfortunately, however, the discovery of who Abigail's father is leads to bizarre deaths in line with rumors surrounding the mysterious man. As the kidnappers drop one by one, the truth behind Abigail is revealed. Originally hired to remake the classic 1936 Universal monster film Dracula's Daughter, Bettinelli-Open and Gillette's film would soon take on a life of its own. Still heavily inspired by the 1936 movie, it dropped the title Dracula's Daughter, donning its new title Abigail, becoming a unique story inspired by the premise of a story centered around the vampiric daughter of a powerful man. While the inspiration is there, Abigail is indeed its own unique movie, blending humor with horror, much like their previously successful film Ready or Not. Abigail is a fun film that kept me entertained throughout its runtime that comes in 10 minutes shy of a full 2 hours. The story of criminals getting in over their heads with a subversion of expectations as the weak and defenseless girl becomes the hunter and the criminals weak and defenseless makes for an entertaining story fused with solid bits of humor. None of the main characters are good people, though a few of them have some redeeming qualities. Normally they would make for characters you don't really care about, but seeing them get their justice after antagonizing who they thought was an innocent little girl is a solid use of irony, and the set pieces and humor kept the movie fun and entertaining. The movie isn't the most original nor best made movie in its genre, however. Turning something unconventional and defenseless into the killer isn't a new concept, though it is well utilized here, and many of the twists and shocking plot points are predictable, and not really shocking at all. The characters are well done stereotypes that help build the jokes, but also never develop beyond the stereotypes. And while most of them deserve their fates, even Barrera, whose character was meant to have a redemptive arc, falls flat because the characters never rise above their intended stereotypes. The story itself also becomes needlessly convoluted by the film's end. And while still short of 2 hours, the movie could have easily fit within a 90-minute window. Attempting to also subvert typical vampire lore, the directors pick and choose which parts of the 100 years of vampire lore to make real in this movie and which not, without much rhyme or reason, to a point that some of what they choose contradicts itself during the film. Things work only when it suits the needs of the plot, not because there is any real world building in the movie. Despite some weak writing and a lackluster finale, Abigail was still the most fun I've had watching a movie in the last 3 weeks. Some of the dialogue and jokes fall flat, but the majority of them land and are hilarious. The action and violence is a fun spectacle, with some of the visual effects being very well done, such as the vampiric Abigail regrowing her hand. And everyone plays their role well, even if written a tad too generic. Abigail could have used some tightening up of the script, though it was in production during the writers' and SAG-AFTRA strikes, so it's possible it never received the polish it could have as well. It is still one I will revisit even with its faults. I give Abigail 2.5 out of 4 stars.
There you have it. 2.5 out of 4 stars for Abigail. Keith is applauding it. Mother Abigail.
I wasn't. I
with
was
his
just
headphones.
doing something stupid.
I mean, what else is new?
I enjoyed it, but I wouldn't applaud a 2.5 star movie. Like, you got to be a little bit better than
some
that.
Some
to get
2.5
the
star
applaud.
movies
Yeah.
we thought were pretty good.
No, I mean, I like I said, I like this 2.5 star movie. I'm not saying 2.5 is bad. I'm just saying that
It's not worthy of your applause.
yeah, if you're coming below 3, you're not really applause worthy. You're just entertaining. Like you were
Just kind of worth a...
Yeah, you were like,
A second
it's like
viewing?
I'll watch
A
this
nod.
again.
A head nod.
Yeah,
There you go.
Like good job. You did an adequate enough job to entertain me.
Well, let's go around the table. Sean, what'd you end up giving it?
1.5.
Woo! All right. So on the lower end, we're not as entertained. No applause from you.
Yeah,
Nope.
no
I'm like,
applause.
good job. You made a movie.
That's
it.
I also went with 2.5. It was funny because after your comment, Sean, I kind of almost went down to 2.
Yeah.
Just because it.
No, he made very valid points.
And
yeah.
I was gonna say,
I don't
there is
disagree with any of
nothing
those.
new. And honestly, I liked what you had to say in your review. It's like there's nothing new under the sun here. It's a hodgepodge of what we've seen before.
Heck, even it started out being a remake of a classic 1936 Universal monster movie. So
Right. So the fact that it ended up entertaining me towards the end, and yeah, I would agree. I probably wouldn't mind. It's not one I'm going to seek out to watch again. If I happen to see it on a streaming service, or even if it's like Halloween, and I want something to put on in the background, or
if I want something not actually scary, just like a goofy horror film, I'm
Right.
like, I just feel like having some fun and watching people die.
But that's where it also fell flat, is that it doesn't have enough uniqueness and enough of the clever wit that I was hoping for in a movie of this caliber. I mean, yeah, it's an indie flick, but considering it revolves around Dracula, you've got, of course, I mean, I don't mind the way they wrote it in that you don't know she's a vampire until you get to the movie. This is another one of those movies where it might have been a little bit, I don't know how they could have sold it to you in the trailer without telling you.
letting you know.
But if you wouldn't have found that out until, you at least get the idea that from the get-go in the movie, these characters obviously have no idea what they've been put up against, which I kind of liked. And ultimately, the crazy antics and the how they kind of stumble upon finding this out and then what ensues after. I was intrigued of how it was going to all end. I thought some of the plot points that they were going to make were, some were very obvious, heading in a certain direction. You could easily see it coming from a mile away. The others, it was like, okay, no, you just made this convoluted for the sake of trying to make it seem like you were more deep or more intricate. Clever, yeah. And so I just thought, I mean, the whole twist and turns it kind of takes at the end, especially, with one of the main characters becoming a baddie. You're just kind of like, all right, that was a little on the nose. We didn't need that. Just being I don't want to give too much away, but the character's actions throughout the film are enough to just warrant, okay, we don't need to see him become a vampire. But also, that in and of itself was annoying. Like, no, this movie is not woke. I wouldn't say it's woke by any means, thankfully. But some of the stereotypes and the tropes that each character fall into as far as their archetype, I think very much fit what you would expect from a woke movie today. And it's just becoming a telltale sign of not only not being interesting, but I immediately know characters' motivations the moment you give me any inkling of their personality and they fall into certain boxes. And I'm like, okay, you're already going to write them to fall in line like this.
They're not going to leave that box.
No,
that they
exactly.
fall into.
They have to stay in there because, the culture of today demands it. And that, to me, just automatically makes your movie that much less interesting. And I mean, I don't want to give too much away in case you want to see it. But all in all, it's worth, I think, a watch. I'm glad that we saw a screener of this movie. It was sent to us by the internet, and we saw a screener of it. And I'm glad we saw a screener of it, and we didn't actually enjoy a trip to the theater to see this. So it was worth it for that regard. Any other thoughts and opinions? I've kind of stated my piece.
I mean, I think I've said mostly what I had to say in
the
review.
You got to say it because I got to throw your name up there. So keep talking.
No, I was just, like I said, the review. I mean, there's mostly, I mean, a lot of the points we've already made is that it wasn't that original. I mean, I laughed a lot, and some of that, it wasn't even, I think, entirely intentional. I think some of it was just like the goofiness of it. I mean, some of it, I think the campiness was intentional, obviously, because it was sold as being more comedic. But at the same time, I think there were parts that were meant to be serious that just weren't, and I laughed at those too because of just how goofy they were and poorly done. The big dude, I thought, like, he cracked me up the whole time just because it was funny to watch him running through the hall and like this little tiny ballerina vampire chasing me. And I was just like, that's the ridiculous type of...
Is it Angus or Agnes? I can't remember
his name was
Angus
Peter
Cloud.
in the movie. Oh, Angus Cloud was the druggy guy.
Yeah. He was funny.
He was funny. I agree. I thought he was funny.
The driver?
Yes, the driver.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
You didn't like him either.
I thought he was hilarious. He played that kind of like the doped up dude pretty well.
Have you ever seen Euphoria?
No, I know he's in it because he passed away.
Plays the same guy in Euphoria.
It makes sense.
And honestly, I could easily see any. I mean, we were joking around about Giancarlo Esposito.
Yeah, they were all stereotypes pretty much.
The big guy was exactly the same guy he is in every other movie that he's been. He's the big dumb guy.
Yep.
And that's... I don't know.
Even Melissa Barrera wasn't that different from her character in Scream, to be other than like having the psychotic flashes of her dead father. But I mean,
no, you're right, and it's funny because it was written by the same peeps that did
same guys that did 5 and 6, which makes sense. They like brought her on board because they quit after like she was fired from Scream 7 too. So it kind of makes sense that I would say they're fairly close as far as making films together.
Probably,
you always have your favorites. I mean, look at Scorsese and De Niro and DiCaprio. I mean.
Sean, you ended up giving it the lowest, though, of all of us. So, I mean, and I kind of referenced, like, a lot of what I agreed on. Can you expound on that as far as what you didn't like?
I didn't like the movie. Like, I did not see this at all as a horror comedy. I thought it was marketed as a scary movie and not as a comedy. And so when some of these moments came up that were supposed to be funny, I didn't laugh. I didn't think any of the movie was funny. I was just like, this is supposed to be a scary movie. It's supposed to be a bloodbath, but you're trying to make these jokes and they're not funny. I thought the dialogue was terrible. I thought the acting was terrible. I thought every character was typecast and played right along with who you would think they would be. How they've been in every other film that I've ever seen them in, with the exception of Barrera, because I didn't even know that was the chick from
Scream.
Not from Scream, but from
In the Heights.
In the Heights, yeah. I just didn't make that connection at all. Her hair must be way different or something in the other movie.
But she just has longer hair.
I I knew that the little girl was going to end up being either a monster or a terror, or she was going to be some crazy serial killer.
Did you not see the trailer?
Huh?
Did you not see the trailer? I thought we saw a movie where the trailer was in there. Like, we had seen the trailer.
I saw the trailer for this.
Because they pretty much... Well, I
the
guess
trailer didn't come right out and say vampire.
Yeah.
But I knew that she was going to kill them all, and I knew it was going to be, she's going to pick them off one by one. Of course, they go into a mansion that has a button that locks the whole place down.
Yep.
It's like Resident Evil, Ready or Not. It's like whatever other horror movie you've ever seen. They go into the house and everything, the windows shut, and I'm just like, this is so stupid already. And, of course, she picks them off one by one with ease. It's like, if you're going to do a vampire movie, at least do something different. They have this 5-minute conversation about all the vampire tropes and how you kill a vampire: garlic, holy water, a stake through the heart. And I'm like, okay, so those aren't going to actually work.
Yeah.
They're going to actually go through this, and it's like, oh, nope, everything we just sat and talked about, none of it works.
Right.
And we're going to have to find another way.
Yeah,
that would be clever.
Yeah.
Nope, all of those things work exactly the way you would think they would work.
Except the garlic.
Yeah,
Except the garlic.
The cross didn't work either. That was my one problem, is that they pick and chose what did and didn't work.
Yeah.
And some of it didn't make like some of it contradicted itself. Like
Yes.
how, like the people turning and stuff. I was
Well,
just
yeah,
like,
one girl takes half the movie to turn into a vampire.
Yeah.
Then at the end, this guy turns within 30 seconds.
Yeah.
There's one moment where the little girl gets shot in the forehead, falls over and lays dead for a few seconds before she gets up and wipes it away, which, like you said, that was a bad special effect. I didn't really care about that. At that point, I was just like, screw this movie. But then in the very same scene, they shoot her twice in the chest and once in the head, and she doesn't even stop moving. Yeah. And I'm like, the first time it knocks her on her ass. The second time, it doesn't do nothing.
I mean, I guess for a vampire, one in your head, it knocks you back a little much.
I kind of also think that was her toying with them as far as like playing dead, and then when she gets up is like the big reveal of like,
I didn't think it was that clever, honestly.
True, and also I just thought that even like there was I told you this, I think, right before you recorded. Granted, they didn't know at the time that she was a vampire, and they thought about, or actually I think they did at this point, because they were worried about it, because they realized it and they were like, oh crap, the one black guy's like, I forgot the gun, and they run up there and they make a big deal out of this, like, the gun is gone. Yeah. And I'm sitting here and I'm like, well, it's a sniper rifle, there's not much you're going to do with it close range, but if it pops up somewhere in the house, that'd be a problem. And then it never gets brought up again.
Well, the sniper rifle in general, I'm
just
like,
gone.
You start the movie off with a kidnapping, but you got somebody on a roof with a sniper rifle. What are they going to do with that? Like,
well, I mean, you saw the one scene where they set it up that supposedly her dad was coming home, and he was like, "You want me to take him out?" And of course, she's told, "No, don't." But I don't know if that was a clever way of like, I didn't mind the setup or the premise of, oh, this band of thugs and people are set up to kidnap her for some kind of ransom pay. Okay, fine, even to get them in the house. Yeah, but you're right. It's like all of these little breadcrumbs throughout the movie to make you think, okay, we're going to do a little bit of a subtle twist on a story you think you already know. The problem is all of the places it ends up at every twist and turn is exactly where you've been in another movie.
Yeah, there's nothing
There's
new.
never anything that really makes you think, oh, this isn't something I haven't seen before. Or this isn't done in a way that is a new take on the trope. I mean, I think of, you brought up Renfield, which I didn't like it. I just like the action scenes. I thought the set pieces were better.
I thought it was actually funny, like making fun of itself.
I didn't. But
whereas this movie, I didn't laugh at all.
I likened it, or I drew more correlation to something like Warm Bodies in terms of a zombie flick.
I thought it was like that and Buffy the Vampire Slayer, like the movie.
The movie?
But
to me, like, Warm Bodies went above and beyond in terms of like the connection between like the main character.
Movie.
Yeah, that's a great movie.
Well, that's a different thought. A zombie and a human having a romantic relationship.
And a zombie coming back to like
gaining like
because of
consciousness.
love. Right. Yeah.
And so I thought like that to me was a clever twist on what you'd already seen before. This was just kind of more of the same with, again, like so many elements you'd already heard of shoehorned in and nothing really left at the end of the film to think,
and I think
this is nice.
It's kind of like we texted after we had all seen it, and It's like I think Keith and I both kind of agreed that it's a preference thing because I'm all about like it's a perfect conversation back and forth. He said he's okay with generic horror versus generic action films, and see I'm the opposite. You can as long as there's enough guns and explosions and hot women, then I'm okay with a generic action film.
You throw in hot women,
that changes things quite a bit.
It does.
But I'm just I don't know if it's something that's changed with age or what, but I'm sick of generic horror films.
Yeah.
I want some. That's why Barbarian threw a curveball at me and made me see the light of what horror can be.
Yeah. And even though you wouldn't maybe say horror, but I would throw Pearl and X in that conversation.
Those are horror films.
I mean, those weren't my favorits, but I thought they were definitely better than this.
Talk to Me, I liked. That was
That's another
was
one.
good.
But that was something that was you could argue and say it's just like any other like demon possession kind of movie, but no, it was different. It felt better. It Follows is another one that's that silent horror. Like you don't even see really what happens, but yet this person following you around through the whole movie scares you to death. And I'm just sick and tired of the generic horror films to the point where it's like it's a waste of my time unless you're going to make something that's unique and actually scary. And again, I gave the movie 1.5 stars. I gave it a 0.5 star for not being woke. I gave it a 0.5 star for being honest about how they marketed it in the trailer. It looked like it was going to be just a bloodbath movie.
Yep.
A bunch of people trapped in a box and somebody's trying to kill them. That's what I got. So at least they were honest. And the third 0.5 star I gave for the special effects because I did think for the movie's budget, the teeth and the makeup and some of the gore looked pretty real. The exploding bubbles of bodies I thought was really bad. Again, that's one of those things where like Ready or Not, which we did finally come to the conclusion this is the same people, but it's like with Ready or Not, there's some believable gore until the very end of the movie, and then it's just gallons of blood. And that is funny. When you go from just a little bit to something somewhat believable to now it's just completely over the top.
Evil Dead.
This movie was like in some scenes it was just completely over the top, just stupid blood. And I'm like, if you think that's funny, go for it. Like I just didn't think it was funny because I didn't feel like it was supposed to be a comedy.
I would agree with you because that was kind of my issue with, and I liked it way better. But Saw 10, when most of the film kept a pretty relatable, very like level tone. And then you get to the very end and it just gets buckets of blood. Where I'm just like, okay,
like a human body doesn't have that much
too
blood.
much excess. To the point where it just kind of it put a damper on the rest of the movie.
It depends for me because I would prefer horror films like Barbarian and things like that, but I also like the B pulp horror films like the old Tales from the Crypt comics and that show. So if you do something outlandish, and I'm not saying this even did it well because like Evil Dead is a much better Fede Alvarez is Evil Dead that came out, not the last one, but the one before that. I loved that one.
Evil Dead Rise was terrible. That was
the one before it that he did. He's the guy that's doing the new Alien film, which is the only hope I have about that movie is just because I like him. Like it's the same way. Is like there's a lot of like gore, but it's more tame. But then at the very end, you get like this massive scene that's just way over the top, but it's just so well done, at least in comparison to like Evil Dead Rise. So I do definitely get that. I think there's nothing wrong with the over-the-top like pulp horror because that can be fun if it's used in a witty way. Even Tales from the Crypt, there were always moral stories that were witty. It wasn't just the gore and that stuff kind of was to exaggerate how bad, like, this is bad. Like, these things are bad, and then this is the moral story that happens when you do these things.
But to go back to even Sean's point about it being a taste thing, because, I mean, I'll be honest with you, it was like, granted, they're not the most high caliber. I would say we have way higher caliber B movies nowadays than back in the slasher flicks. But what I watched, I tried to watch all of the Nightmare on Elm Street and
those are amazing.
Friday the 13th movies this past
not
Halloween.
Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, but not.
But it's great. Actually, it's really funny because Jason goes downhill really quick.
But
even Freddy Krueger in the first Nightmare on Elm Street, it's a straight up horror
Yes,
movie.
yes.
It's Halloween. It's
yeah.
good.
Yeah.
And
then they
2 is
become
terrible.
Then they
Yeah.
become comedic though.
Yeah, they come-
Welcome to primetime, bitch.
Yeah. Right.
It's just now
which is crazy because in
yeah.
3, I was like, 3 was a
3's
step
not
up in
bad, yeah.
story. Like
Yeah.
it followed a different.
1 and 3 are considered the
evolved.
best out of all of them.
And it's crazy because you could see it evolved, but also where it went to, it overextended its reach.
Yeah.
Obviously, by the time it's getting into like 6 and 7.
Yeah.
But that was my thing is I stopped even just watching those 2, which granted it was overload when you. Yeah, I didn't watch all of them,
Yeah.
but I watched probably 3 or 4 movies of each, and I watched
Yeah.
them in succession. So it was like I had my fill.
Oh,
long
yeah.
before Halloween got there.
Yeah.
Plus, I wanted to watch other classic Halloween flicks throughout October. At least in that category, there's campiness and there's stuff that like there are times where I'm like the cheesy effects are what sell it because it's dated and that's
Yeah.
part of its charm. And but even still, there's things like this that come out now, and I'm like, it seems like they're hinting at or trying to touch on that same kind of charm.
but they can't.
But
yeah.
they can't,
Yeah, no.
or they can't have the nostalgia without the nostalgia being there.
Yeah.
And I think it's like because I thought about this in terms of the film, industry as a whole, and how we're talking about being fatigued on franchises and whatnot. And I thought about it in a way of like, yeah, that's kind of how I feel about even like horror films to a degree. It's like I can watch them during Halloween, but you can only watch so many till you're blue
Yeah.
in the face and you've had way too many of them and you're done with it. And it's the same with action genre. Like I can only watch too many dumb action flicks with stuff blowing up. I mean, heck, even if I agree that most 007s are good, I can only watch a string of those until I'm like, I got to move on to something
They're the
else.
same. It's new bad guy.
Yeah.
Got to
Right.
rescue the girl. Got to
Yep.
save the world.
Right.
Yeah.
You mean you don't want to binge watch all 23, 24 of however many there are
I
now?
actually-
I think they might be at 25 now.
Of all the movies that I get made fun of for having not seen as far as classics go, because Prime, since they bought out MGM,
Yeah.
or Amazon bought out MGM, and they have all of
Yeah.
the 007s, I do want to go back and watch them all.
Yeah.
I would spread it out. I wouldn't try to binge
I will.
it. Like,
I will. I'm not going to know. I'm definitely not binging
I mean,
it.
they're worth watching, I think, but it's just, it's like you said, like, because there are bad ones for sure.
Yes.
So it's not going to be worth trying to like binge them all.
As you talk about a franchise, I'll put $5 on the table right now. In 2026, there will be an Abigail prequel. They will make another one of these movies. It won't be a sequel. I guarantee it'll be Abigail Origins or Abigail the
Maybe
Beginning.
it would depend. Like, it has to
I
make its
bet
money
you.
back.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's my only concern there is, because you even brought it up in text where you were talking about The Conjuring or
Yeah.
Yep.
another one that
At least those made money.
spawned a
Yeah.
franchise. Well, and it's
Insidious.
I don't think they would have spawned them if they weren't huge hits.
Yeah.
The fact that they spawned or they like people came in and went and saw those movies at the theater overwhelmingly like boosted their numbers, and I thought they were like, okay, we got to make more of these. And we saw where The Conjuring ended up with
Yeah.
the freaking what
The
was
Devil
the last
Made Me
one?
Do It?
Yeah, The Devil Made Me Do It. It was terrible. It was an awful movie. And even Insidious kind of ended up with what was the Red Door one?
I don't. Well, that's supposed to be the final one. We'll see.
Yeah, and I'm
Yeah.
just like
Yeah.
they ran that into the
Yeah.
ground.
And they make
and-
another. Isn't there more than one Annabelle too?
Yeah.
No.
Or
there's-
Annabelle is
That's part of the Conjuring franchise.
right.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's 3 of those, but they're all those are connected to the Conjuring.
I see this movie. Its popularity online. It's in the 80s on Rotten Tomatoes on
Yeah,
critic
yeah,
and
it's-
audience. Like I
True.
think they'll get another movie, but I think it'll be a prequel and it'll be about how she became.
And
a
you're right.
vampire.
If they know they can squeeze $1 out of a dime on this, they'll
If
definitely
it
do
gets good enough word of mouth, or if it goes to video on demand and ends up making good money there, like because fans, like audiences, do seem to like it.
And you're right. It won't be long. It'll be
no.
within the next couple of years because they have to. They have to
Yeah.
strike
Well,
while
that's
the iron's
okay.
hot.
Like, look
Yeah.
at Talk to Me. That's a movie that doesn't need a sequel, but like right away, like
It's
as
gonna
soon as
have one,
like right
yeah.
after it came out, they were already talking about doing that
Yep.
sequel
That's
because
true.
it did so well. And yeah,
All right. Well, you heard our opinions. Go see it if you want to. We got other movies that are coming out that we're going to be reviewing here on the show.
there's all kinds of stuff coming out soon.
Yeah. So we think its theatrical run is pretty much done.
Oh,
at
it's
this point.
done. Yeah, it's not gonna.
But
There's too much other competition.
if you want
coming.
to go check it out, if you're intrigued based on our thoughts or our opinions, or even just want to check out something a little different. I mean, we don't really see horror. We see them either around Halloween or like right at the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
We haven't really seen one this late. I think they tried to hit that sweet spot right before the summer blockbusters.
Yeah.
And they thought they fell on a week, which granted they came in at number 2.
Yeah,
If
yeah.
Civil War wouldn't have been in there, I think it would have
It might
easily
have
taken
number 1, yeah.
taken the spot.
I'm actually surprised that Civil War was able to beat it. Because I thought
I am and I'm
Civil
not.
War is one of those movies where I think anything anybody had for that movie would wear off quickly. And it's like the next new movie that comes out is going to beat it.
Which is funny,
because
it came in
I-
third at the box office this week. Civil War
right,
did, yeah.
because what was it?
What
well,
took
wait,
number 1?
No, it was number 1, I thought.
Challengers took number 1.
Oh, that's right.
Oh,
Challengers was
yeah.
number 1. Unsung Hero was
That
number 2.
doesn't surprise me at all.
Yeah,
'cause
and
it
it
looks like a.
yeah.
Never mind.
And that's really, I mean, that's kind of why we went with Abigail, is because we didn't want to review Challengers, to be
Yeah.
honest, if we're going to be, I mean.
It's going to be, it may go to second.
I think
it'll stay at second because Fall Guy
will be number 1, yeah.
They've been freaking pushing that movie like crazy.
I do want to see it, though.
That'll be generic, but I
Yeah.
think that one will actually be
I-
funny.
no, I'm
'cause
actually- that
Ryan
one I-
Gosling's funny.
Yeah,
So-
that one I think will be entertaining. I actually
And
am
I think
looking
I
forward
think
to
it's
seeing
gonna.
that.
It has the potential, and I'm calling it now. And
Mm-hmm.
stake a bet on it. Put $5 on your $5.
Okay, all right.
I think it's going to be one of those movies that has the charm and has enough of a different take
Mm-hmm.
on the genre it's teasing, that it's got that heartwarming nature and
Mm-hmm.
a decent enough story with good characters that it'll make it a long-standing, like, okay, this was a movie worthwhile.
and
I just don't see them pushing it the way they have advertising-wise. I mean, yeah, I know Emily Blunt and Ryan Gosling are in it,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and they're the main draw. But even still, I just think this is going to be some kind of love letter to like
To
your
stunt,
to stunt guys,
work,
but
because-
also it's going to tell a love story
Yeah.
as well, but have the humor. It's going to have a lot more
It's going
heart.
to make fun of the action genre in a way,
Well,
and
it's going to have a
I think it's
special
gonna-
a special sauce in
Yeah.
it that's
Yeah.
going to make
That's
it
what
remembered.
intrigued me most about it, is because the director was a former stuntman, and it is actually inspired by like an old show that didn't go very far. I think. I mean, maybe it did. I have to look it up, but it was based on it was called, I think, Stuntman, and they were stunt guys that ended up becoming like either spies or something, like kind of like how he gets involved in this movie, how he has to go and gets involved in all this crap. And basically, like what I was reading and what I've seen behind the scenes so far is like a lot of the special effects are practical because the director was a former stuntman, and this is supposed to be like his love letter to stunt work. They even broke the Guinness Book of World Records for
The
barrel
flip-
rolls
yeah,
in
I
the
saw
car.
that, yeah.
8.5.
gosh.
They
It's
got
8.5
the they got the
barrels.
car to roll 8.5 times and broke the record. So I'm like, seeing stuff like that
It's
is what
the
excites.
same kind of marketing ploy that they tried with Mission Impossible
yes.
and the jump.
Yeah.
from-
But you know what? I that works for me, because knowing that it was actually done, that it's not just a bunch of CGI, that
True.
this is a guy that actually cares about like that stunt work and special effects,
Yeah.
makes me more intrigued to see what special effects are going to be in it.
Well, and again, it will sell. I mean, I'm talking about it before it even comes out. I'm hoping it will sell in a way. Again, show don't tell. And so much of the problems that I have with movies these days, especially something like an Abigail, is that it's revisiting and treading old territory, and you have to do something new to deliver. And part of the way in which you do something new is, again, show don't tell. You're a movie. You've got to give me a reason to be there. I mean, like we just said with Barbarian, it led off with a very simple premise of, oh, what would happen if you showed up and somebody was in your Airbnb, and it went way outside that scope by the end of the movie.
But they didn't
but it
spoon
wasn't
feed or explain anything.
exactly.
Like I mean, the narrative explained itself, but that's exactly like the acting and the narrative explained itself. They didn't have to say like, well, this is what this means, because I hate that. You even mentioned Abigail. That was something that irked me. Like I actually enjoyed it when it first happened, when they get there and Esposito, like he names them each someone from the Rat Pack.
Yeah.
And he's like, he calls them, and go do whatever you pack of rats. And the one guy was like, I don't get it. But they left.
Pack?
But they left.
Yeah.
No, but at first he said, I don't get it, and they left it at that. And I actually really liked it. I was like, oh, I'm glad he didn't explain that joke, because Hollywood would do that now. And then like two scenes later,
then he does explain it.
Yeah, he was like, oh, the Rat Pack, and I was like, well, dang it. It's like I got the joke without you having to tell me he's referencing the Rat
and
Pack.
if I didn't, then leave it be.
Yeah.
For those who don't get it, you don't get
Yeah.
it. Because
And I
I
just
told
hate
Keith this.
that,
I
yeah.
said there's been movies where I've seen it
All
and
the
they just
Gen
let it
Zers
settle.
would have been like, what?
Yeah.
Well,
what?
and then there's stuff.
Yeah, they had no
get it,
clue.
yeah.
Then there's stuff that I've seen like years down the road, and for some reason it pops back in my head, and I'm like,
Oh.
that's what that was referencing.
Yeah.
Oh, it clicked.
And that's so much more satisfying.
Yes.
I'm like, I hate like if you have to like explain the joke to me, it's no longer a joke. Like it's not
Yeah.
funny when you have to say, well, this is what this means.
Yep.
It's like, well, thanks.
All right, we beat a dead horse enough. Let's
did.
get into our headline segment for the night. Let's do it. Let's roll that open. Wow, he got it this week. Wow.
We used to do it like we used to go crazy on it.
Yeah, we did because John would like take
For
his
way too
headphones
long.
off. Headlines.
You serious, Clark?
All right, I
Just
want
for old time's sake.
to start off with business first.
then
I get-
pleasure. I just
business up front, party in the back.
Very poor choice of words. But yes, business first. Paramount Global CEO is out. That's right. I forget his name. Hold
it's
on.
Bob
Backish.
Back. Yeah, Bob
Bob
Backish.
Backish
Backish.
stepping
Beat
down
me to it.
pretty much being forced out of his helm at Paramount Global.
Yeah.
As they are in ongoing talks with Skydance Media right now.
Well, you don't need
To possibly be bought out. We've known for the last several months that Paramount Global has been
They're
looking
just,
for.
they're prepping. It's like
Yeah.
you're not going to need this CEO if the people that buy you has their own CEO.
That's
Like,
right. That's right. He's going to clearly be taken out then.
It's
so
like he
why
would have
not?
been. Yeah, just,
Make it a little more marketable.
it's like we're preemptively getting rid of our CEO so that you all can take us over. Come on.
Well,
come
and
on.
apparently he was showing resistance to the deals, the talks that were going on. He didn't
Oh,
want
yeah.
to.
Yeah.
The board pretty much forced him out because they didn't like his suggestions of, oh well, we can negotiate this way.
He
They
didn't want to
like
be
it.
out of a job. He's like, listen, guys, I don't think this is a.
You
This
can't
is not a
blame him
great.
for trying to save his own job.
He's like, I don't think this is the best way to go.
Well, I do think it's interesting because I don't know. We're not going to see a sudden, I think, resurgence of Paramount's value anytime soon. I mean, the May 3rd is the deadline apparently for this closed negotiation that's been going on with Skydance. But apparently there's talks of many other groups that are interested, Sony Pictures even being one of them, that could possibly potentially throw their hat in the ring if the all cash offer, or they're willing to offer an all cash offer, but not sure exactly what's going on behind closed doors right now with Skydance and Paramount Global. We know that their streaming numbers have been in the doldrums for over a year now. Their stock prices have been in the dumps. It's like clearly they've been setting up for trying to position themselves to sell off their property. It's the tried and true story of what we've seen over the last several months of just dwindling studios. I mean, Paramount will exist, but is it in the same form and fashion that it was obviously a century ago when it first landed on the scene and became the huge
Yeah.
And I mean, that
production
kind of
house that
depends,
it
I
was.
guess, who they sell to. I feel like if you sell to someone like Skydance, like Paramount's a big name, they're probably going to keep that open as
Oh,
a
yeah.
huge studio and make movies under the Paramount banner. But then when you have something like Fox with Disney, of course, Disney's the huge name, and they're just going to be like, well, now you're just 20th Century Studios, and you're just underneath us. Like, it's
You don't
still,
think it'll say Paramount or Paramount, a Skydance
it might
company.
underneath
I
there.
think it will.
Yeah, yeah.
Just like Sony. I mean,
Yeah.
Columbia
Yeah.
is a Sony,
Sony-
Pictures
yeah.
company.
Pictures company.
I'm sure it will, but I mean, you'll still have the brand recognition. Whereas I feel like, yeah, you still have 20th Century
Wait,
Studios,
does
but I feel like that.
MGM, do they show the logo and does it say like an
I don't
Amazon?
have to look. It might.
They still have the lion.
Yeah, they do.
Right,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I
It's still
think they just
MGM.
have the same logo. I don't think they modified it or said it like an Amazon company or nothing like that.
And maybe
I don't know.
Good for-
Because
I
it
don't know,
used
I
to
have
say
check.
around the lion like that.
Yeah,
like
Metro Goldwyn
Metro
Mayer.
Goldwyn Mayer.
that
yeah.
or no, I thought it said Artas Gritas or something.
Oh, it did have the
Yeah, I thought it had that.
It
in
says
the,
Metro.
Does
It
it?
says that on there too.
I gotta pull up the daggone.
I'm
logo.
pulling up their current logo.
Now they
like-
got a CGI lion though instead
Yeah.
of
Probably.
a real one.
Yeah. It says Ars Gratia Artias.
Yeah, it has
Or I'll show it in the,
on the banner. Yeah, Metro Goldwyn's
Metro Goldwyn
above
Mayer's
it.
above
above
it.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But like
The
in this-
banner is
on the actual
Ars
That-
Gratia
crest or
whatever
Artis,
around the line.
which I used to know what
Can't
that
really
means. It has
see it.
something to do with the arts, hence Artis.
Yeah.
But
Oh gosh, I can't
Um,
really see it because there it is. Yeah. So it's funny that right there. It's just interesting because it's like I wonder it would be funny if they got rid of
Sorry
that part of
about
the
that.
logo and they put an Amazon studio
Amazon
Yeah.
company
yeah.
or something, and it just like butchered it because it's like they got this, You know, I guess what is that, Latin? I don't know what that is.
Yeah, I was Googling what it meant. I used to know what it meant.
But look, it's just crazy that we're seeing these major studios shrink and shrink and shrink to the highest bidder, or even someone who's got just a great track record for now. But who knows if, you know, clearly they're hoping it puts them in league with maybe having this library of classics that they can, you know, put out there in the ether with their own brand name, make their brand bigger.
Yeah.
But as we continue to see the shrinking of really competition amongst, you know, all of these production
That's
houses.
what it was. Okay.
What is it?
Yeah, art for the sake of art. I knew it was something like that. I just couldn't remember. Yeah.
like
Ars gratia artis, art for the sake of art.
I do, but look where it got them.
Yeah.
It's like, well, yeah, you got
I mean,
out.
we were talking about nothing new when it comes to Abigail or these generic movies. But there's nothing new with it. I mean, look at Sears and Roebuck. That's a company nobody ever thought Sears would go.
100%.
And it did. You know, I think this is just inevitable, but it does suck. Like, I mean, it's like these are companies that we're used to.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, I don't know. It's sad.
I mean,
it really is.
It's like the company that made Top Gun is going under. That's crazy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I thought the same when MGM got bought out by Amazon.
Yeah.
Like, this is 007.
Yeah.
Like, that's just crazy to me. But oddly, I'm like, it's not only a changing of the times, but you're right. It's like, what led them here? And it is ultimately
Poor business practices.
poor business decisions. And
Making art for the sake of art instead of art for the sake of money.
And really,
and you need a balance. I mean, you shouldn't just make art just for the sake of money. That's what Disney's
it's
trying
the
to do.
film
and some
business.
stuff. Yeah.
It is a business.
Yeah,
but,
you have to be profitable.
but good business is making good content.
Yeah.
And
well, especially when your forte, that is your entire business model, is creating things that you don't know if the payoff is going to be. I mean, this is what we've always joked about the Marvel movie and what MCU has become. It was a cash cow for Disney. It was like, okay, only they're going to see changes when it's no longer a cash cow. We're finally at that point because the movies suck and people are voting with their dollar. But until something truly shows up as a downturn in a business, you ultimately are like, okay, well, maybe this will strike gold. Maybe this will be something that will, you know, usher in a new fan base that starts a new trend. And I mean, the reason why we keep nauseating over every new Transformers that comes out, but yet people still show up to go see it. So, I mean, Godzilla Kong is a perfect example. It's like there are people who still show up to see those movies in the theaters, even though I will rail against them here on the show. And obviously, you know, they're not great pieces of art. But at the end of the day, the real question is anything really changing? Business structure changes, but Paramount's logo, Paramount's name is not going anywhere. Regardless of who buys it, they know that the name itself, I mean, that is what you're buying.
Yeah.
And
that's
while
a brand,
you know, the business structure changes, it's like ultimately, I mean, it's like Disney buying Pixar.
Yeah.
I mean, one, they were always in cahoots together anyway, but Pixar was still Pixar. Now, granted, there's an argument to be said now, and of course, I think the same can be said for whether MGM or Paramount is over the course of several years.
Yeah.
Does it start to take shape in such a way that you're like, okay, their library doesn't match at all what it used to and doesn't even comport with the same kind of, you know, work that they used to put out there. But it's kind of hard because with Universal, Paramount, I'll throw MGM in there, Netflix even. I mean, all the major players of any major production studio, can you really even tell a difference of what is their stuff versus somebody else's?
Yeah, not really anymore. I mean, to an extent, Disney you can still, because it's not Disney, but it's
wrapped up in the facade of
it's
being
like
for
you can definitely tell. Not even just that. Just I think some of the woke political angles they take in the direction, the way they do it is like all of Hollywood does it, but the way Disney does it in, like you said, like that kind of hidden, like this is for kids, but we're also like, it's just very like when you see something that's Disney animated versus other studios that make animated stuff that is less blatantly woke because they're still making, like they haven't gotten so far as to doing that with their children properties. It's just like I could tell a Disney movie.
And honestly, there used to be a difference in animation styles.
Oh yeah,
You could definitely tell a difference between
Pixar was
DreamWorks,
on another level.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, you
I mean,
you
they were
can tell
always
the
ahead.
difference between a Pixar movie or an Illumination movie or a Disney movie because the character designs and like the art design was always different. Even when they all started doing CGI, the art design and character design still were unique to each company, like the way their facial features may look.
I think
and
even pushing. I'm sorry.
no, I was just saying,
Go
like, I
ahead.
just don't think that's the case. Like, Disney, I feel like, has kind of lost that identity because there's stuff they make now that I think looks like Illumination or looks like DreamWorks. I'm like, they don't even look like Pixar anymore.
Yeah, that's where I was
Yeah.
going. Was like I can remember when the movie Brave came out, which wasn't a great Pixar movie, but people raved about the animation of her hair,
Yeah.
like how Pixar was able to animate her curls and how you could see every strand of hair. It was a new thing that we hadn't seen. We had seen, hair in other movies like Tangled and things like that, but it just didn't have the detail that Brave had, and that was one of the. But Pixar doesn't push that envelope anymore.
You're right.
It's like everything looks the same. If anything, Illumination, I think their art style and animation style has almost all looked the same. Like if you watch the Despicable Me and Minions and Sing, and I'm trying to think what the other, not the migration one, but the other
The Secret Life of Pets.
Secret Life of Pets. Yes,
Yeah. They do all have the same animation.
they all have
art style.
a very clear art style. You're like, oh, that's an Illumination movie.
Yep.
Yeah.
And Pixar's kind of like become the same thing where all of everything looks the same.
regressed. Yeah,
Or they went backwards. Yeah.
It just seems
They're not
like
doing
they
anything
used
new.
to break new barriers when it came to animation, and that you always went to them for. It wasn't like even certain effects, whether it was supposed to be in Toy Story. I mean, I remember seeing the screenshots, even though I didn't like Toy Story 4. Screenshots of the dog in the first movie versus the cat that is in Toy Story 4.
Yeah.
And you see the ridiculous. I mean, I remember at the very beginning of Toy Story 4 when they are underneath the car in the rain. And I was like,
yes.
this is insane looking.
Yes.
And
Beautiful.
It's
Yeah.
like, and there's still an art to it because it's like, no, these look like legitimate real toys, but in the middle of a rainstorm in a real environment.
Yeah.
Like the environment looked real and they looked fake, but fake in the sense that it was art, like it was supposed
Yeah.
to.
Yeah.
It just had this uncanny attention to detail of like, this is impressive.
Yep.
And it's like, and sadly, even Toy Story 4, like I said, I didn't like the movie, but that was only 5 years ago now, maybe 4 years ago. But I'm like, that alone,
Yeah.
they've regressed even that much since then.
2019.
Yeah, so 5 years ago, and it's like they haven't done anything that has impressed me since.
Oh,
They've gone back
no.
to, like you said, an overindulgence of. I mean, I used to think when they were trying to compete, like Pixar was trying to, or Disney Animation Studios was trying to compete with Pixar to like own their name, and they were coming out with things like Tangled or what was it? Freaking Frozen. It's like
Yeah.
they were creating hits that were like on par, if not bigger, than Pixar movies, and it was like, oh,
Yep.
this is good, healthy competition for Pixar to give them a run for their money to keep them on their toes.
Yeah, they were both going back and
right.
forth.
And now they've all just kind of, like you said, other than maybe Illumination, it's like they're just this amalgamation of just similar art styles. They don't even try
even
new tropes or
between
tactics.
Disney and Pixar, like, you could tell, like even they had different art style. Like you could tell this was a Disney movie because the type of movie and the art style was different than what Pixar would do. And like you could tell, you could watch a Disney movie and know that was made by Walt Disney Animation Studios. You could watch a Pixar movie and know that was made by Pixar. Now, like you can't even tell the difference between a Disney and Pixar movie. They might as well not be separate studios because they're all the same.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
Pixar's storytelling used to be.
Oh.
Yeah.
You know, if you think about the
Yep.
movie Up, it didn't really push any boundaries in animation, but the way it pushed boundaries in the first 5 minutes
Oh,
of the
yeah.
movie
Yep.
in invoking emotions, like Pixar hasn't done anything like that.
Nope.
And Disney.
Were you talking about Finding Nemo?
No, I was talking about Up.
He's talking about Up, but
Up.
Finding
Yeah.
Nemo.
Finding
saying
Nemo, I
first
was-
few minutes of Finding
yeah.
Nemo.
Yeah,
Just,
yeah, no, that's
Yeah.
again, that was
Yeah.
Pixar in its
Yep.
heyday, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's like they don't do anything like that anymore.
I think Inside Out was the last like just great Pixar movie.
True. And that was
then-
2017?
Yeah.
So
One. Don't worry. This month we're getting the sequel. It's going to be
Yeah.
great.
Oh,
it's going to be
not this month.
not this year. I meant. Not
Okay,
this
yeah.
month.
Get to meet
I think it's
anxiety.
July. I think it comes in June or July.
You get to meet who?
Anxiety.
Oh,
Yeah.
joy.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
man. Can't wait.
Yeah.
But no, and we'll kind of touch back on this a little bit of what we're talking about. I mean, We kind of branched out quite a bit from just Paramount Global, but
yeah.
it's all within the same scope of conversation. But we'll talk about it a little bit with some of Jerry Seinfeld's comments on just PC culture, wokeness, and
we can get
comedy.
into it now. We're kind of already going there.
I don't want to. I want to end on a higher note than just ending with
you want to jump to... Yeah, gotcha. Yeah,
I want to cover the big topic that our episode is named for.
Yeah, no,
teased
absolutely.
at the top of the show here. And that is, of course, the Harvey Weinstein conviction in New York overturned. It was a ruling of 4-3 at the New York Supreme Court that evidence was entered or witness testimony was entered into the trial
that should not have been.
That shouldn't have been there, and therefore swayed the jury in an unfair way. So to uphold the honor of the justice system.
Yeah. Well, and that's what I was going to get at with me finding it funny, was because only in an instance like this with Harvey Weinstein would New York actually care about like the letter of the law and be like, well, this one because it's like, okay, here you look at Donald Trump, not to get too political,
no, you're right, 100%.
But I'm just like that they could bend every rule possible to convict someone like that, but then when it comes to Harvey Weinstein, who's very clearly guilty and has been convicted guilty by not just New York, but like you said, in California as well, and it's just like, I just think it's hilarious that it's like
they're going by the book.
Yeah, the very like we have to go by the very letter of the law, which I mean, again, normally I'd be for. It's like, yes, please go by the law. That's what you're supposed to do. I just think it's kind of hypocritical that now you want to.
And here's the thing, and while I completely agree with everything you just said, the only thing I can't hold them to an account yet because I really don't know the makeup of the New York Supreme Court. And truth be told, I mean, a lot of New York, other than New York, and like Albany, is red.
Yeah. Well, most states are, except for the big cities.
True.
Yeah.
But even then, the fact that it was 4-3.
Yeah.
So it was still a divided Supreme Court.
Yep.
But we also don't know if the convictions that are hailing down from the DA's office, that wonderful DA in Manhattan there against Trump, we also don't know if those would get overturned at the New York Supreme Court.
Yeah, we
don't.
We like I said, there's a lot there that like to give them the benefit of the doubt. I just think it's funny.
But you're right.
Yeah.
In the midst of the world that we live in today, to see the shenanigans that are going on across the entirety of the justice system, whether it's local or state or federal, you're seeing instances like this where clearly, I mean, I was listening to Michael Knowles the other day, and he was talking about this, and he just said, look, it's not that, you could easily pick out parts of this case where, these Supreme Court justices are coming up to the ruling in a fair, just way. The conclusions they've made their statements, they've made their case for it, and it's understandable that, yes, what happened in this trial may have been the wrong way to approach, the trial in general.
Yeah.
He may have received an unfair trial. But in the same token, you have the stuff going on with Trump, but also Weinstein himself was the fall guy for a lot of what has been rampant and terrible about the Hollywood industry. For the casting couch is a joke just because of way more people than just Harvey Weinstein.
Yeah.
So the fact that you have an unattractive elderly man who finally met his comeuppance just a few years ago with the Me Too movement, and all of a sudden, all these righteous warriors come out to take down this, awful sexual abuse going on in Hollywood.
Yep.
And this is the only guy who's been convicted because he's an old, shriveled up, movie mogul that we just happen to know was dirty, and all these A-listers who were in on it, and they knew too.
He was a big enough name that people know, and because he's been joked about as being a pervert and a sex offender before, it's like people already know. Like he was an easy scapegoat because
he was an Epstein.
Well, you have to be foolish to think he's the only person in Hollywood that did these things. It's like we already know he's not, but he was the easy guy to make a fall guy.
And while the only reason I can also think that this is happening is because they did somewhat know. I don't know what kind of precedent's being set up there. Why this? I mean, I'm not saying it didn't take the
proper kind of
precedent's
being set in New York because nobody knows.
I don't. Well, and in the justice system across this country in general. I mean, but it is odd to me that I think the only reason they went with this was to somehow, again, like you said, rest on their laurels of integrity and upholding the law as it is, only because they knew he's going to be transferred to a prison in L.A. and he's going to have to go to prison there for...
Yeah, he's still got a conviction, so it doesn't matter
he's
that
still
they overturn this one.
Yeah. So he's still going to go to prison.
It gives them a little bit of clout to say, see, we're fair, we're just, we're not doing crooked things in these other cases.
Right. And it is odd. It's like, of all the ones in this high profile, it's like, I mean, it's like you said, why in the world would this one just
out of it's not out of nowhere? Obviously, there's a legal process that takes time, but it does feel like out of when you have all this other stuff going on, and we've already moved way past Harvey Weinstein and everything that's happened with him for this to come back up and be like, well, this happened, and it's not going to matter, but we're overturning the case in New York because it was unfair. It's like Is it really just legal processes that led us here, or was there an ulterior motive to... And again, like you said, it was a split court decision, and you could speculate about anything, but it is one of those things that just seems kind of a little sketchy.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Misdirection. That's what I think it is.
Yeah, that's exactly. Yep. Just like there's something, I feel like, bigger at play here.
Yeah, well, that's what always happens. Yeah. Just like with when we talked about the one documentary that dropped, it's like look at this over here, don't look at what we're like, look at the child actors that were abused. We're not really going to go over anything except for one episode,
or we're not even going to talk about how it's not really ever died down. It's just we're going to talk
we're
about
not even going to talk about how we're fixing it. We're not
Right.
fixing it. Like Nickelodeon says, like, oh yeah, we're aware of the problem and we've done stuff about it. That's
we're not going to say what.
Yeah We're not going to be clear on those details. But so look, I mean, say what you will about it, to me, I mean, on just a personal level, look, we live in a fallen world. Bad people get away with bad things all the time. This happens to be one of those cases where, look, I am not going to sit here and say, well, Weinstein's just a bad person. He deserves to rot in jail for the rest of his life. No, I think he deserves a fair trial. I think a fair trial would have turned over this result anyway. Mm-hmm. I don't necessarily think, yes, the moral side of me, the conscious side of me is saying what the Supreme Court in New York did was right. Yeah. Because if he didn't receive a fair trial based on the laws on the books and the way it should have been done, then it was wrong. Yeah. However, there's the other part of me too that's like, well, one, thank God he is still being served his sentence of justice in California, which is part of the reason why I think New York came to this result anyway. But it's a debate of how morally...
It's moral justice versus absolute justice, which I mean, I love those themes. That's why I love One Piece, but I won't get into that. But I mean,
you're exactly
that's what it is. It's like there is absolute justice is letter to the law, but then there's also the sense of moral justice of is actual morality, like moral justice being done here, regardless of what, because laws are laws. I'm not saying disobey them, but not just because it's a law also doesn't necessarily, like, there's laws in other countries that you could say are very unjust. We like to think here in America we have just laws, and I do believe in the original justice system of the foundation. Yes. Yeah. But all it takes is a corrupt person to create a corrupt law, and just because it's a law doesn't mean that is morally right.
And ultimately, and I mean, in this, going back, not to jump into a whole nother discussion on Alec Baldwin and him getting away.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's like, and granted, that's a whole nother state. You can argue in that regard, but there are some issues here where, again, you almost wonder, okay, well, federally, they could be prosecuted to a certain degree, or you would think, especially in the Alec Baldwin scenario. But why aren't those things happening on that level?
Yep.
Call that into question.
Like you said, it's an imperfect world.
Yep.
Not to just hand wave it away as like it's
trying
okay.
to get rid of a presidential candidate.
Right. Well, and
that's
again,
where all the time and effort is.
And
right
sadly,
now.
Living in a fallen world, the sun shines on the just and the unjust alike. So, but again, he's not getting out of prison. He's going back. He's going to a different prison.
He didn't get a reprieve.
Nope.
Just,
But all right, let's move on to our last topic of the night, which happens to be Jerry Seinfeld talking about PC culture.
He's on a roll, man.
He is. I think he's wanting to get canceled. I think he's wanting people to come after him.
He's just had it with Hollywood, I think.
Prove his comments right.
Well, it's funny because, look, I was never a fan of Seinfeld.
I wasn't a big fan
like
of the show. Yeah.
I didn't think he was that funny.
Yeah.
I understood its essence later on in life. I understood why it was popular in pop culture, but I was more of a Frasier guy. I
love
the
Frasier.
wit in Frasier. Yes. But ultimately, I think it's odd that you've seen. I mean, if you go and watch Netflix Comedian in Cars with Getting Coffee, which is produced by Seinfeld, he's in all of the episodes.
And it's funny. I like it.
And he's got across the political spectrum, along with actors and actresses alike, all sorts of flavors in Hollywood. And the idea was that it was like he's always told that line of just being very milquetoast in the middle, like comedy's for everybody. Doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on. It's not political. Whatnot.
I think that's just entertainment in general should be. Look, everybody has different ideals and political beliefs, but that doesn't mean you can't be entertaining for everybody and come together and like not make everything this battle of we got to brainwash everybody into thinking how we think, because if you don't think this way, you're evil. I mean, it's stupid, and it does ruin entertainment, like he said.
Right, and to me, I think it's funny because I've seen backlash from people on the left, of course, on these comments, and then like they're wanting to be like, well, what I still turn on like Abbott Elementary and Ghosts and like, and they're name dropping these shows that I'm like, one. They're not funny. They're not funny.
I cannot stand that show. I've watched a couple episodes. I didn't like it.
This is the same problem I have with SNL. SNL hasn't been funny for 2 decades.
Yeah.
It still goes on because it's a staple in our culture. Fine, so be it. But you almost have to have a time where you do have to you have to go back and look at like, okay, are we really doing a service here by continuing this monstrosity, or do some things in like Sears Roebuck?
Yeah.
What is it?
Sears and Roebuck.
Roebuck, yeah. It's like eventually some things do come to an end because they aren't needed anymore.
Yeah.
And yet there's when you name drop all these shows, and you could argue this on the basis of the fact that we have way too much content, which I think is a whole nother discussion. In fact, I meant to send you all an article, and this kind of plays into it. I forgot to send it to you all, but it was a comment that one of the Russo brothers made regarding fatigue in the MCU.
Oh yeah.
And he made it to Variety, which I'm gonna read that here in a sec. But basically, those shows that people were mentioning as being funny, one, they're not funny. And two, it's like nobody talks about them.
No.
There's no water cooler talk. Whether you were a fan of The Office or not, you've heard of it.
Yep.
And you know characters from The Office. Yeah. Everybody knows when I say Pam and Jim.
Big Bang Theory is another
Big Bang Theory, a huge cultural staple.
Okay. Going back, because he mentions, stuff like MASH, All in the Family, Cheers. But yeah, you mentioned Frasier. Whether you like Frasier or not, whether you've seen it, maybe it's too dry for you, you still know what Frasier is. You know what Friends is. You know what Seinfeld was.
And other than these other ones that I just mentioned, for the happenstance that they were on a talk show from daytime, or there was some clip you found that was spoon-fed to you on the YouTube front page because, we're going to automatically bolster these because they're from our paid outlets. Yeah. I mean, that's the only problem is you've seen all of these clicks and likes from. I mean, I see clips all the time from what is it? Last Night Tonight, John Oliver, whatever. He gets millions of views on YouTube, and I'm like, I don't know one person in my own circle, and even in a vast, wide circle that I know of, that watches that show.
Yeah.
Same with Bill Maher. And like, granted, I see more clips of Bill Maher based on the circles that I follow on X.
Nobody watches
Colbert. Nobody watches late night anymore.
Late night's dying. I mean, it's been dying for a while. And I actually did want to read this one part from Seinfeld because this is something I agree with. I think he's meaning more so just in general with comedy, but I think this is like the entertainment industry in general. When he's talking about people always need comedy and it's not existed, he said, well, guess what? Where is it? This is the result of the extreme left and PC crap and people worrying so much about offending other people. Now they're going to see stand-up comics because he's talking about audiences are now going to see comics because we are not policed by anyone. The audience polices us. We know when we're off track. We know instantly and we adjust to it instantly. And I think that's something that the entire entertainment industry used to apply to them and they have lost it, is that they no longer, it's like, we're failing at the box office. That's the audience policing Hollywood. But instead of Hollywood saying, we need to get back on track, like Seinfeld says in a stand-up act, they're saying, well, no, we're right. We're just going to keep pushing this crap down your face because eventually y'all will realize and wake up and just say, oh, yeah, we like your garbage. We'll keep watching it.
Well, because, people have had to turn to comedians because, like he said, they're the last line of defense. And when you're the solo act and you have to entertain, the only reaction that you get as to whether or not you're entertaining and you're doing your job is the reaction of the audience. There is no, we got to wait for these numbers to come in. We got to wait for our PR department or our advertising department or all these other
that's
places.
What he said.
It's
Like a script goes through 4 or 5 different hands, committee groups. Here's our thoughts about this joke. And he said, well, that's the end of your joke.
Exactly.
Because once it has, like Marvel, that's why Marvel's so bad. They have like Kevin Feige, then they have rooms of writers, then they have all the, like, you have all these people telling you, well, no, it has to be this and this and this. And I understand it's a shared universe. They're trying to make it all connect. In that aspect, I understand why you need a group of people. But now it's not even that anymore. It's to make this most milquetoast thing because they're trying to crack the key of what's going to entertain the most people possible rather than just focusing on making a good story.
Yeah, 100%. And I do want to turn to the comments that
Joe Russo.
Yeah, Joe Russo made about it. It says
about Marvel.
So I'll just read the Variety tweet. It said, Avengers Endgame directors says Marvel's recent struggles are not due to superhero fatigue, but a big generational divide about how you consume media. There's a generation that's used to appointment viewing and going to a theater on a certain date to see something, but it's aging out. Meanwhile, the new generation are, I want it now, I want to process it now. Then moving on to the next thing, which they process whilst doing 2 other things at the same time.
Yeah.
You know, it's a very different moment in time than it's ever been. And so I think everyone, including Marvel, is experiencing the same thing, this transition. And I think that really is probably what's at play more than anything else. And I do. I mean, we have talked about this, not only kind of going back to what I just mentioned before about content overload and how there's way too much, but I think the fatigue really does rest in the essence of people's attention spans, that they've moved on to something newer and bigger. I mean, this is exactly the dopamine rush that TikTok ensues every single day when they feed you more and more of the algorithm that you quote unquote like based on how long you're on one video versus the next. Yeah. And that 5-second rush of dopamine is what you're constantly working towards getting your fix. And movies just can't do it in the same way. You can't technically produce the same content of what the MCU was through the Infinity Saga because we're not in that era anymore.
Yeah,
that's done. It's past. And so to try to continue to repeat that process is futile. You can't do it. And I think he's right. I think it's a transition being felt industry-wide. But how do you course correct? How do the change it up?
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think it also, and I agree with him, but I do also think that he neglects to mention the fact that quality also is, you're not holding anyone's attention when you keep making garbage. Yeah. And I do agree that like there's too much. There's like, and this generation is. I mean, my
he
nephew
was trying
will
to play nice.
Yeah. The nephew will be playing online multiplayer games with his friends on PC and then have something like going on his TV and then something else on this monitor over here. And it's like, I mean, hey, more power to you if you could focus on that, but I don't see how you can. That's like I was talking to my brother-in-law the other day about something he was watching, and he's like talking about like how fast he's caught up on this show that I've already seen. And then I've also noticed him walking around doing all this other stuff and doing this. And then he'll mention something about reading something. And it's like, well, I haven't seen that yet. It's like, well, no, because you haven't actually watched the show. You've been like doing all these other things. And at that point, you're not actually consuming the content anyways. You get a gist of it.
I've done,
and
I'm
I have
guilty
too.
of it.
Yeah, I mean, I have a little like a monitor at my house. I've actually, had something going on the TV and played a game on this monitor at the same time. But I always catch myself realizing that I'm focusing on one or the other, and like I'll rewind the same episode 3 times because I was playing the game, and I'm like, this is stupid. I'm not actually like I need to do one or the other because
you're not good at multitasking.
It's like I'm not actually watching the show. Well, you can't because it's like I got to focus on what I'm doing in the game. I can't pay attention to what they're saying on the screen at the same time.
I mean, well, and Sean, you had something to add.
No, I was just going to agree exactly with what Keith said about the quality being an issue. And again, and like you said, he is playing nice, but he has same Russo brother has had recent tweets about the idea that Marvel's pitching around of bringing Downey's Iron Man back. Yeah, and he's like, you can't bring Iron Man back. We ended that. Yeah, and you said we ended that. Yeah. So how are you gonna bring him back? And so you can sense the frustration with some of the old guard, so to speak, that created good Marvel movies and gave us these moments like we've probably watched on. I've watched it on YouTube probably 50 times of Captain America saying "Avengers Assemble" and the crowd going just buck wild in the movie theater. You don't have those moments anymore, and so I think it's got to be frustrating for filmmakers who create something that leads to moments like that, and then seeing what's the word you like to use a lot is schlock. It's like this is the schlock of what we have right now. Is we're not leading to that, and I think Marvel's tried to capitalize on both of those because they have the big movie moments in the theater, but then they give you a bunch of shows that you can consume at home rapidly to feed those kind of people that need it now and want to watch it all at once. But the problem is you've got the shows that are supposed to line up or fit with the films. So then the film people like me have to also watch the freaking shows that I really don't have any interest in, but I need to know that one tiny piece of the puzzle that's leading to the next movie. And so they've tried to hook both people.
Or you think you do.
Or you think you do, and you don't. It
Some of the
doesn't
shows have
deliver.
nothing
Really,
to do with
Loki
anything,
is the only one that's partially delivered on anything.
Yep.
And it's like, but I may not want to consume that way. I'd rather make the appointment and go on that date and watch the next big Avengers movie or the next big Marvel movie.
Yep.
And let the show people watch the show, but don't force me to do it, and don't force them to do the other thing. I don't think there's any other. I agree with what he's saying, but it's like you can't just stop making movies and showing movies in the theater. So I don't know what the solution is.
I really think it's going to be like most things. I mean, over time, the solution is going to present itself. But I think we're seeing. I mean, like you said, we're in the middle of the transition now.
Yeah.
And kind of tying this back into Seinfeld and what he's talking about with comedians. I think you're seeing it from the small front. I mean, in the early 2000s, you saw a wave of breakout, whether it was actors and actresses, but also even filmmakers with the indie scene blowing up. And, of course, we got tired of those movies when you had the artsy-fartsy auteur-type films coming out that eventually it got on our nerves about how sometimes you just wanted to go to the theater to just escape and have a fun time. But you also can't have too much of that. I think we're seeing it with the combining of a lot of these major studio houses, these production houses that cannot fund the major blockbusters, or at least they're not getting the major blockbusters producing enough to produce the independent films that bolster some of both the best of both worlds, or they're at least not being wise enough to figure out what are those necessary picks in both categories, whether independent or major blockbusters. So I think you're going to see major companies, production studios like Universal, Paramount, even the ones that have already been pilfered off, whether it's MGM, whether it's Warner Brothers and Discovery combining. I mean, you're seeing the pairing off of the big league players because they can't remain as massive as they once were, because the film industry is changing, because it's becoming almost too consumer driven, or there's too many other things to compete with our entertainment attention span, that they just don't compete on the same level they used to. So you're seeing them merge to make that piece of the pie smaller. But in other ways, you're seeing A24s and Blumhouses and even your independent movie production studios that have kind of always putted along. Yeah, a lot of them have gotten their start in the last few years, but there's been a few of others that have stuck around for several decades, and they're now becoming a little bit more not only household names, but they're producing things that are on your 10, 12, $15 million budgets, and yet they're getting traction. They're coming out, and they're I mean, even I thought it was funny, and this is not the first time I've seen this, but Unsung Hero, when I was looking that up, and obviously you could easily say the Christian market is untapped. I mean, you've got Angel Studios now producing some decent stuff. But Lionsgate was the distributor for Unsung Hero.
They were the distributor on that one we talked about last week too.
I think it's the same ones that produced. Oh gosh, what was the last one that came out about? Not Can Only Imagine. I forget the name of it.
That was
not Mercy Me one.
Yeah, that was.
Well, no,
I Can Only Imagine.
Are you talking about the the one about Jeremy Camp?
Not even that one. It was the one that had Frasier in it. It had Kelsey Grammer.
Jesus.
Jesus Revolution.
Yeah,
I
Yeah,
think-
yeah,
I-
yeah,
I-
that one.
I don't know if that was
Yeah.
distributed by Lionsgate, but I know
Yeah,
it
that
was
one I
The
don't
same people that made Jesus Revolution made this one. Yeah.
So it actually wouldn't surprise me
Yeah.
if it was.
If Lionsgate distributed it, yeah.
But I mean, like, you're seeing ways in which, in Lionsgate, that's what I mean by, they're not independent studio, but they've been, I mean, since Saw.
Yeah.
They've been dealing
They weren't
with
a thing
under the
until-
table
yeah, yeah.
movies. Like, no, they used to be like one of the heavy players of like, no, we're a big production house. And it's like, no, they made a lot of flops. And
Yeah.
so they ended up having to go to these other alternative routes. And they've steadily kind of gained a footing in weird, obscure, like, yeah, you've got your Saw horror flick, gore
Yeah.
porn movies, but then you have them producing or distributing something like Unsung Hero, a
Yeah.
Christian-made
that
film.
Lionsgate's who did the Hunger Games movies,
Yeah.
which is actually, I mean, it's not the biggest franchise, but it's still a big franchise for especially something like what Lionsgate used to be.
It's just like you look at the category of films, and I think you're starting to see the bifurcation of major studio conglomerates that have always been around are merging and becoming one to keep up the same model of produce big blockbuster, get in tons of money, produce big blockbuster, get in tons of money. And yeah, you'll have a few flops here and there, but hey, for every Top Gun Maverick, it funds your next several blockbusters. And yeah, you can't have too many flops. You can't have too many $200 million movies that only make $300 million at the box office. Can't do that.
yeah.
But if you have enough of a sure thing and you could tap into that and it's like, okay, that's all you're going to get from these major players, and then the smaller independent houses are the creative ones that are really thinking, and they start to move the needle forward. And I think you'll get, movies that land on the scene that become a hit enough to where one of the bigger players picks it up and says, all right, we can run with this. Why don't you come over here and make a movie for us? Whether it's a filmmaker or whether it turns some solo movie into a franchise. But I mean, adapt or die. I mean, the industry has
Yeah.
to change. And there's way too many things competing for our attention these days. You have to change up the way in which we consume this kind of content. Because it's just got to appeal in such a way that, not only are our attention spans shorter, but then that means that if we are spending 2-3 hours in a theater, it's got to be good.
That's where I was going to say. I think the adapt or die is right, but it's adapting to what I don't think they've pinned down what exactly it is that we need to adapt to, because I would also argue that movies like Barbie, and you mentioned Top Gun Maverick, those movies were 2022 and 2023, right? Or Top Gun Maverick was 21.
I think Maverick was 22.
Was it 22?
Last year was,
But again,
Mission Impossible.
that movie came out around in the time that this generational transition is happening, but those movies put butts in seats.
True.
Big time. People aren't fatigued of going to the movie theater. They're fatigued of seeing crap movies.
Well, and the same thing.
And I think that's where, like Keith said, the quality is one of the things that makes a difference. I don't think people have superhero fatigue because they have to have it now and want it now. It was only a couple of years ago that people were willing to wait 2 years for the next film in the saga to come out. And every film put butts in seats. I think it's the quality that has made people think I'd rather just stay home and watch something at home. I don't want to get out and go sit for 2.5 hours through a crap movie.
It's like the freaking Scorsese movie that just
Killers of the Flower Moon.
Yeah. It's like we went and saw that in theaters. I would have much rather have just stayed at home if Apple had made that available day one on Apple TV Plus. Spending 3.5 hours in the theater for that movie wasn't worth it.
Yeah. Same
I
with
didn't think it was worth it on my couch either.
I know. I
didn't think it was great at all.
But I would have
knew
rather
walking
watched
out.
it on my couch than having to
Yeah.
sit in those
Yeah.
uncomfortable AMC broken seats
Awful.
for 3 hours.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing too is, I mean, even something like Napoleon with Ridley Scott. I mean, you have these tried and true directors.
I like that one better, but
Yeah, true.
It was better, but not by much.
yeah, it wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't
And you
great.
have Apple resting on the laurels of, oh yeah, they've got the name and the recognition, people will show up.
Yeah.
No, you still got to be entertaining, and you
Yep.
still got to give me something that again makes it worthwhile, based on even your own catalog of movies, and saying like, okay, yeah, this is the reason why that director has the following.
That's where I think the new Gladiator film that's coming out.
Yeah,
I don't think it's going to do good at all.
No.
No.
Not. I think even Ridley Scott, and then you've also got the name Gladiator. If they even stick with that, I don't think that's going to be enough.
No,
I think
I
they're
don't
betting on direction, and they're betting on the name of the film.
You're right.
Because the first one was popular, and it's not enough.
No,
it has to be good.
Exactly what kind of Russo's, to his point. Exactly. I think we're in that point now where that transition period where you either have to look in the mirror and, wake up and smell the roses, or what is it? Wake up and smell the coffee. I don't know what the saying
Either
is.
one.
I don't know what it is.
It's like I'd rather wake up and smell roses or coffee than shit.
Yeah.
And that's I'm
Exactly.
sorry,
There
pardon
you
my
go.
French, but that is what we're
You're
getting
right.
now.
That is,
Yeah,
yeah.
I don't want to go to the movie theater and
Absolutely.
waste my time. The older I get, the more precious my time seems to be, and I'm just like it. And I know we differed on Abigail, but I saw that as like that was 2 hours I could have been playing with my kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like,
Oh, no,
this
that's
was a
still
waste of my
fair.
time.
Yeah.
Well, heck,
But-
I jokingly said, like,
If it wasn't for this podcast, I would have never watched that movie.
yeah, well, and there's games out there that is like, I mean, there's, like I said, there's so many different things that are competing for my time.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm not going to spend it, watching something that I would rather be spending doing something else.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Alrighty, let's move on to
think,
our final topic of the night, and that is our vices topic. Let's get it. Oh,
That-
Sean,
that
I came out on
keyboard, man,
you.
that
That's what I was
synthesizer
going. That's right. What is that from again? The Geeks movie? I think it's Revenge of the Nerds.
No, that's multimedia.
Oh no, that's the multimedia.
Yeah,
one. This
yeah,
is this is just Miami Vice theme.
kind of like
Yeah.
Miami
Yeah.
Vice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Was it? Is it the Miami Vice?
Yeah, it's the
theme?
Miami Vice theme.
Yeah.
Oh, do we,
We probably
copyright
get
that?
yeah we get
hit
flagged
for that every time.
week. I don't know. Yeah, there it is.
I just wanted to put that really wasn't appropriate there. I just was like, I haven't hit that yet.
and you find a way to have to hit that every
gotta
show.
push it.
That one's my favorite. It used to be,
It's working! It's working!
But now it's
yeah, but now it's.
every time.
I just like Hayden Christensen more. Like Jake Lloyd, he did nothing with his life. At least Hayden Christensen, like he went to
Hayden
jail.
Christensen-
Jake Lloyd got out before he got raped, though. You
Yeah.
got to give him that.
I mean, no, but he got into
Hayden
drugs and
Christensen-
went to jail.
Yeah, that's
Jake
true.
Lloyd, Hayden Christensen's actually like a fairly decent dude.
No, I'm
so
saying
just
a
like,
child actor got out of
Oh,
the
yes.
business
Yeah.
before something happened
But he
to
got
him.
made fun of in third grade, and so he got
Yeah.
mercilessly cheesed. I can't say it.
He got teased. He got bullied
He
for
got
being.
cheesed.
He
I
got
don't know what
bullied
that
for being
means.
such a crap Anakin. They were like, "You sucked."
But it was
Yeah.
funny because I mean, just like Jar Jar, except Jar Jar was a grown man. It's
Yeah.
like, dude, come on.
Yeah, no,
And it was nobody was crapping on you. They were crapping on George Lucas and the performance he told you to do.
No,
It's like,
no.
get over yourself.
Well, that's like the one dude from Eternals who said he had to have therapy after the movie
Oh,
bombed. I'm just
gosh.
like,
Oh,
get
God.
over
Oh,
yourself.
man.
It's like,
That's the problem with Hollywood.
I made
Yeah.
a bad movie and had to go to therapy. It's like,
Have
I'm
you
sorry.
seen the stuff about the Abyss? Now that has been released on 4K, there's all these like horror stories about how James Cameron treated.
Oh well, I've always heard horror stories about
Yeah.
how James Cameron treats people on
Like
set.
Ed
so-
Harris has come out and
Yeah.
said that he basically almost like drowned.
Yeah, I've
because-
heard that before.
because they.
I don't
couldn't
think that's
get
new.
They
Like,
couldn't
I've-
get the oxygen to him quick enough
Yeah.
while he was swimming underwater. With
Yeah.
no,
that might have just
Like, all kinds of stuff.
resurfaced.
I think that just reset because I've heard before that like there's been people that like when he like filming that he would make them stay underwater and be like no stay down like
there's just like they interviewed him recently about the re-release,
Yeah.
the remaster, and how it's getting buzz again 30 years later or whatever. And they asked him like, "Could you talk about?" And he flat out said in the interview, he's like, "I don't want to talk about it.
yeah.
I don't have anything else to
There's-
say
there's
about that."
people who
Like,
haven't liked James like he's I fully like I don't take a lot of stock and like I don't think he was just some monster that was like trying to murder people on set, but I do think he's probably is kind of a prick to work for.
Oh,
so
yeah.
yeah,
I
but
believe
people
that.
still want to work for him
Yeah,
though.
yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like,
Well,
yeah.
because he makes entertaining
Yeah,
content.
he
Yeah.
does.
That's what I don't want to admit.
So
it.
I mean, I don't. It's one of those things where it's
Yeah.
like I don't think he deserves to be canceled if that's what they're going for. That's stupid. But I mean, yeah, I believe he probably isn't the most fun guy all the time.
okay,
I don't know how
Vices.
we got on.
Yeah.
I didn't. You were talking about
How did this start?
Hayden Christensen.
Yeah.
And look, he talk about somebody who's done a full circle turn of being hated.
Yeah.
But it's like, yeah, he just embraced it, and he's like, hey, look,
Everybody loves Hayden now.
and he's even come
because they
back
know it's not his
and
fault. It's not
reprised
his
the role.
He's good to fans.
Yeah.
I'll give. He is good to
absolutely.
fans.
Because
I'll
people
give him that.
recognize it's not his fault
Yeah.
that like the movies were the way they were. Well,
Right.
actually, when you see what's her name, Kelly Tran, and you beg, it's like, look, you know
Yes,
what?
don't even
I would
start on that
I would
one.
rather have
Talk
Hayden
about somebody who
Christensen.
should have got bullied. Gosh.
She quit Twitter or something over a
Good.
while
Good.
back. Yeah.
Good.
I mean,
Get
I
off
think
of
she's
it.
back now, but I'm just saying, like,
Of
back
course,
at the
they
time
always
of the
come back
movie.
because she wasn't bullied enough.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
Let's
this
talk,
is yeah.
Let's talk about our vices topic.
yeah.
A vice you knew you had to cut back on.
Yeah.
I couldn't read it.
This is, things that's like I got mentioned. One for me was like coffee, just because I was getting to a point where like my heart would be like kind of like jittery and stuff. I'd be like, I need to cut back on some of this caffeine. Like
Okay.
throughout, like I still drink coffee in the morning and I might during the day a little bit during work, but I try not to drink it like late at night as much because I'm
like me.
yeah. That's why I've been bringing my water bottle here. But that was just one specific I had that I was like, well, I mean, that was because I love coffee. I mean, even like, okay, I love like we smoke cigars next door and stuff like that. And I mean,
I was gonna bring it.
and I mean, there's been times where I still smoke cigars, obviously, but there's been times where I'll get more heavily into it, and then I'll just be like, man, like I don't feel the best. Like I need
How
to
much
quit.
is heavily into it? Like Brandon had 4 cigars in 1 week.
Yeah,
I did.
that's
that
heavy.
That
See,
was way too
that
much.
is-
but it was every single one
Yeah,
was
yeah.
fantastic.
If I would do that, and then like on the 5th day, I would probably be like, man, I kind of feel kind of crummy. Like maybe it's the cigars.
here's
I
the
don't
thing
know.
though. You all typically smoke a cigar each. Well, you.
I don't
typically go
every
your
week,
peak,
but I
your-
mean-
I have two.
Two.
every Tuesday.
But
Yeah.
I don't because I haven't been unless
Right.
I'm
Yeah, yeah.
I'm off
Yeah.
and I can
Yeah.
actually
So you were
join
trying
it
to
and then-
catch up
Yeah.
in 1 week.
Well, I'm just saying.
when I go
it
to the
was
lake, I've got one in my mouth all the
every
time.
day. Yeah, every day.
Now that I will, like when I go to the lake, then like that's vacation time, and I
Yeah.
will splurge and smoke a cigar every day.
They were beautiful days outside that one given
Yes.
week, and it was not planned. It was like I came home, and like I had one on Sunday night, then I had one on Monday. Tuesday I didn't because of the show. Then Wednesday I came home. I was like, man, it's another gorgeous night, and I just happened to have enough cigars. I was like, I'm gonna do it.
Yeah.
And Thursday I had one. I was like, all right, after this I'm done for the week.
I see
I
no
was
problem
done.
with this.
Yeah.
So-
No, exactly.
There
There's
could be
no,
something like,
but here's the thing: I don't do it all the time.
Yeah.
and I absolutely and like it was that one time, that one week, and I'm like, all right, I'm not
Well,
going to do this all the
everything with moderation, and like sometimes if you realize you are going, like it's just like if you have high sodium, it's like you got to cut
Everything?
back on. Yeah, everything in moderation.
So heroin within moderation.
In moderation.
In moderation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. In moderation, you're fine. You know, if you do too much, you OD. That's why you got to do it in moderation.
okay.
You pay the ultimate price for too much of that one.
That's right. You want a UD? Oh, he's getting.
I'm gonna
ready
get my
over
vein
there.
ready.
Get it ready.
getting
Get it ready.
Gotta get your belt out.
But yeah, I mean, it's just like obviously, it's like
Find
I
that
mean,
vein.
if you're like you realize like you need to lose weight, or if your sodium's too high or anything like that, it's like cut back on like
Yeah.
your salt.
I've been doing
intake,
that
your,
recently, yeah.
Sodium,
The sodium and
Dieting?
just eating
eating healthier,
eating better.
Yeah. It's like when
So-
you put away a whole thing of Doritos
Then
in
you,
one
then you
sitting.
go over to your neighbor's house and
Yeah.
and eat what they got, and it's like it's good. So I'm gonna eat a bunch of it.
yeah, yeah.
Like I'm not. There's no portion control tonight. There's
Yeah,
no.
well, you
like,
you
I
can
don't
have
care.
a cheat night.
And
you
here's
know?
the thing,
Yeah.
well, a cheat meal.
You know.
I used to do the cheat day in college. That was turned out terribly because then it's like
You're
the
not
whole
supposed to
day.
cheat the whole. Yeah, you're
Oh,
not
yeah.
supposed to cheat
Yeah.
the whole day.
But
Yeah.
a cheat meal, and even then, I don't like the phrase because the idea is that you want to try to be nutritious to some
Yeah.
degree, but I think to me it depends on your tolerance level.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean in the last 6 months I've been really cutting back and I've been trying to watch what I eat, but it's like we went to Mike Lenig's. It was impromptu on Sunday. Was that Sunday?
Pretty sure it's Sunday because you told
Yeah.
me when I was leaving from the review.
And
that
I was like,
you were going to go to
I
Mike Lenig's
just cut the
family.
grass, and I'd ran 13 miles in a mini marathon on
Yeah.
Saturday. I was like, I can enjoy a freaking fish
Some fried
sandwich.
fish.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so I did not hold back. And granted, but here's the thing. Before, what I would have done, I would have had a fish sandwich or chicken fingers, and I would have had a hush puppy, onion rings, and fries.
Oh wow.
Not all of that together. I mean, like,
Okay, I was gonna say,
usually we would have the
I
fries.
was like, I would have never even like. I'm a big guy. And I wouldn't even go that far. Like,
Because here's the thing,
like
they-
a sandwich and fries would have been it.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
that's normally what I would have. But then my parents would order like onion rings for the whole table. I'd have like 2 or 3 of those.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
And then I'd
okay.
have a hush puppy.
Yeah.
Appetizer. Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, then that sense,
That's
yeah, I
different.
agree. I
Yeah.
probably would have
But
done the same.
all of
Yeah.
that is I
It is.
I
It's-
literally had the fish sandwich and then like an onion ring and a hush puppy. And that was it. I didn't have fries, none of
Yeah.
that. I'm like, it's still having what I like, but again, portion control.
Yeah, moderation.
In moderation. And
Yeah.
so I think just being cognitive of it or cognizant of it and making sure that I'm keeping track of it. And if it is a stumbling block, I know not to even tempt myself
Yeah.
with it.
Yeah.
Then
If you know you're going to eat the whole bag of Doritos in one sitting,
Don't buy
buy
the
a bag of Doritos.
Right. So yeah, dieting really has been, I think, I don't even want to say it because that's not really a vice then. I mean, dieting is something I think everybody should do to live healthy.
Well, I would say dieting is a vice, cutting back on the unhealthy food.
Yeah.
Like the vice was the unhealthy food, and you're no longer.
But even
Yeah.
sweets, I wouldn't say
Overindulging.
like there are some things it's like, okay, technically, yeah, Reese's is really, really freaking good.
yeah.
But it's like if you want something sweet, and I'm not trying to compare them because they are not the same, and I will have a Reese's every once in a while, but it's like go freaking grab a banana, go grab some strawberries, go grab fruit. Like get natural sugars, and even that is not supposed to be like.
No, because even natural fruit sugars, like if too much of is too
Yeah.
much sugar. Yeah.
So it's like, but it's still way healthier than the processed food crap
Yeah.
that you get from
Yeah.
all of our major food production.
I will
And
tell you, Costco, they have dark chocolate Reese cups that are made with organic peanut butter.
Oh my god.
They're not Reese brand.
Yeah,
they have
yeah.
their Kirkland's, but they're dark chocolate and,
I've
and
had Kirkland's
organic
cups. They're actually good.
Yeah, they are. They're
Yeah.
like
really good.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So yeah.
I mean,
sweets
it's still
is
not
right.
like healthy, but
They're
it's
not
better.
like, but they're
than,
way better than
Yeah.
Reese cups. Yeah.
And oddly, it's
Healthier.
like I mean, this is one area where I'll say social media has been great, but I'll be flipping through. I mean, it's basically TikTok, but Instagram Reels.
Yeah.
Recipes and stuff.
And they have freaking recipes.
Oh, yeah.
And the
I
great thing
save
about
those
it
all the
is,
time.
again, the algorithm. Once you stop on one and watch it,
Yep.
it starts showing you a bunch more. And there's some that I'm like, nah, I've already seen something too close to that.
Yeah.
Or too
Yeah.
similar. Then I'll come across one and I'll be like, that's not bad. That's healthy.
Yeah.
That's how
I'll try it.
That recipe I told you about, like of the sweet potato brownies, and they're really good. Like that's how I found that. They are really like it's, but I mean it's a much healthier alternative because like the sweet potato.
I mean,
is
even
what's
that,
making it
I
sweet.
love freaking French fries.
Yeah.
And I am not a huge fan of sweet potatoes. After getting an air fryer and cutting them up into like sweet potatoes into cubes and frying them, it's like a freaking little
Oh, those
dessert.
brownies
They're
don't even
great.
taste like sweet potato. I mean, they're a little bit like bushier, I guess, than a regular brownie consistency. Like it's more like a fudge, I guess. But I mean, it tastes really good. Like it doesn't taste like a sweet potato.
I've got two that I've cut back on that I'll mention, which because they don't have anything to do with food or anything. One of them is Amazon.
Yeah.
Because
yeah, that's a good one. Yeah.
I got to where, like, if I was on Amazon and I saw something, it wasn't even something I needed at all. It was just like,
You're right.
Oh, I
was
can
on
get that.
sale,
Or-
yeah.
and even if it wasn't for me, even if it was just for the kids or something like that, if it's like on sale, oh yeah, that's too good of a deal. Got to get it. Got out of control, and so like financially, that's one thing that I've had to like draw back on. But then another thing, and this was more recent, is I'm a dad. I love messing with my kids and joking with them about stuff and things like that. But I was we actually, like, one Sunday, our Connect group, we were talking about not provoking your kids to anger or not provoking them to sin, and we got on this discussion and it popped in my head. It's just like, you know, my older son is getting to that age where girls are starting to look nice instead of have cooties, and they are liking him, and he's, you know, flirts back, but you joke with him about it, he gets emotional,
Yeah.
and
Same,
usually
yeah.
gets himself in trouble. So it's one of those things where it's, and my younger son, I would poke with him about things too, and then poke a little too far, and then they end up getting in trouble. They end up being kids and not knowing when to stop, and they do things, and then I'm like, no, wait, hold on a second, you
Too
can't.
far.
Yeah,
Yeah.
too far, and they get themselves in trouble, but it's
They
they're
don't
in
know the boundary.
Yeah, they're in trouble because
You provoked
them
it.
to
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
And so that's one of those things recently that I've had to catch myself before I joke around with my boys or poke with them about things that I know they're already emotional about,
Right.
or things that I know that they're just going to explode off of. And so it's been really hard because I like to push their buttons.
Yep.
Yeah.
But it's like if I'm pushing their buttons and knowing that they're going to react poorly because they're kids and they can't control that yet, then I got to stop.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the things that's a vice for me because I really love doing it.
Those are both really great examples.
Yeah, that one's been really hard. Like worse than not buying stuff on Amazon has been.
The Amazon one's a great one because that's the one that didn't even occur to me. But yeah, I mean, we were just next door going through the bid FTA thing, and that's another dangerous thing where it's like, everything's it's cheaper, but by the time if you bid on like 5 or 6, it's like you've spent more money than you normally would have.
And as soon as you said Prime, I haven't had Prime in the last several months. I did it through like Christmas just because I was buying things for family members, but also there were times where I was like, they do that stupid thing where they're like, oh, get a week for $1.99. I'm like, well, that's a steal because I'm going to buy something and get free 2-day shipping, and I'll buy like 2 or 3 things I know are on my wait list, and I can get that shipped. Great. And then there was like a couple times where it would like overlap, and I'd be like, oh, I'll pay for 1 more month. Yeah. And I was buying stuff that I could use, but I didn't need. Yeah. And I had to do the exact same thing, and I finally let it lapse. And then if I've needed something in the last few months, I will go back to the old method, which is just use my parents. And they would, they don't care. They never did. But it's like, I'll just, if I really do need something right away, I'll just use theirs and order it and get what I need. But I didn't need to buy half the crap I did on there in that few times. Again, I've used it. Yeah. But it's one of those things where it's like it can easily it's so easy to it can get out of control. Absolutely. And another one too that I need to work on is managing my time better. A vice of just like, yes, doing the show here and loving this, but also doing like and having work. It's not like I've fallen back on any responsibilities. I time manage well, but there's other things I want to accomplish, much with the show and also with Red Moon in general, and just kicking my butt into gear and stop procrastinating and actually working on things that I should be spending my time doing, as opposed to, consuming a lot of that other entertainment that I shouldn't be spending my time on as much. That's always a vice that I know I need to cut back on. Because the thing is it's interesting. It's almost, I liken it to losing weight and dieting is you don't know how much of a benefit it is and how much better you feel until after you've, resisted the temptation. And I think it's the same for when you do create things like, it's like this. There's been shows definitely where we come on here and just before it's like, whew, this is going to be a tough one to get through just because it's been a long day and, you're already fatigued. But I'm always grateful after we do it. I'm grateful when we're done with the show, we wrap. And it's the same with finishing any kind of project or something that you've worked on. It's like you feel that joy of actually having accomplished something and having, something to show for your work. So that's probably another vice that I would throw out there as to something that I need to cut back on is spending my free time a little bit more wisely than just, again, being a slob and lazy, and,
playing Rebirth.
That's it. Yeah. Playing Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Alrighty, guys, that's going to do it for this episode. Thank you all so much for tuning in. But right there at the bottom of your screen is going to be our social media.
Socials.
All of our social media. You can like, share, subscribe on all those different social media apps right there. Red Moon Book on Facebook, Red Moon Tweet on X, Red Moon Pics on Instagram, and of course search for Red Moon Productions on both YouTube and Rumble. Live on both of those platforms, and our entire library is on there. Thank you all so much. There is that one other way. I always forget it. But Keith, you know it best. I'll let you say it.
I'm aware of it. RMPodcast at redmoonproductions.com.
Oh, every time. It's what I look forward to.
Yeah.
That's a vice of mine. Alrighty, that's going to do it for this episode. Think we're doing The Fall Guy next week. I think that's the movie we're going for. Until next time, I'm one of your hosts, Brandon Davidson, alongside our normal new host,
Sean Sebastian.
And
Keith Cantor.
Keith Cantor. He remembered it.
Cancer. I was like,
Cancer. I am a cancer.
We hope you enjoyed this week's episode. For more reviews, previous podcast shows, and everything Red Moon, visit our website, redmoonproductions.com. You can also like us on Facebook or follow us on Twitter by searching for Red Moon Productions, LLC. We'll see you at the movies.